Let me get my screen up. Are you ready? I'd like to call this meeting of the Newington Board of Education to order for Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. The time is 7:05 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Deb, will you please call the roll?
Mary Beatrice,
She's excused.
Brittany Carr,
Here.
Sean Halloran,
Here.
Anthony Manley, Timothy Newington,
Here.
Karate,
Here.
Sam Sharma,
Here.
Jessica Weaver,
Here.
Here. Here.
Thank you. All right, our first item on the agenda is a presentation for our everyday hero, Dr. Brummett. Here.
All right. Well, tonight's kind of a cool night. I don't think this has ever happened before, but the everyday hero is also someone that's presenting tonight, Christina Redmond. I don't think that's ever happened before, but it worked out awesome. Why did someone nominate Christina Redmond? She was nominated by Jamie Rodriguez at the high school. Christina has taken on a new role at NHS and has hit the ground running with very little time to switch gears. As everyone knows, that grant came in very late and we had to get going right in the fall. So she switched gears from being a Spanish teacher to being a mental health school counselor. Every day she teaches a mental health seminar, but she also handles students in crisis all day long. She carries the burdens of our students with grace and incredible empathy. There are days when I see her on the way out and I can physically see the toll that the work takes on her, yet she doesn't ever complain and instead constantly advocates for our students and their needs. She feels passionate about her work and she's committed to the importance of it. She's an amazingly strong person. So come on up, Miss Redmond. Would you like to take a picture with her? And you're going to hear much more about the work that Christina does with her students, and you'll hear from some students as well in a little bit. But now we're going to take a picture. Sorry, that might have been me.
Thank you.
We're doing a picture.
Oh,
And then you can say a few words.
oh, geez. I wasn't prepared for that part.
It's okay. It's at least you're both smiling.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Would you like to say a few words, Christina?
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Brummett. And I wish I could thank Jamie, but I'll definitely thank her tomorrow. So I was definitely shocked. I thought the whole school counseling department was getting this award, so I was definitely confused. I'm very grateful. I'll talk more about this position and the grant and everything I've been doing. I was going to thank Dr. Brummett in my presentation, but this wouldn't be possible without her support. And so I would like to equally share this with her because she really worked with me to write the grant last year. And I'm very grateful for that. It's been something like I've been in the works for like 5 years. And I've always been passionate about it and it's finally happening. So I'd like to share this with you. So thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Redmond is correct that this must be like school counseling night here at the Board of Ed. It is also honoring National School Counseling Week, and there is a proclamation that our board chair will be reading.
Yes, there is a proclamation. So School Counseling Week recognition. Resolution honoring Newington school counselors, February 21st, 2024. Whereas the Newington Public School System is committed to honoring its school counselors and recognizing their contributions to the educational system and their tremendous impact in helping students reach their full potential. And whereas the Newington school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas the Newington school counselors are actively engaged in a partnership with parents for focusing on positive ways to enhance students' academic, career, and social emotional development, and working with teachers and other educators to provide an educational system where students can realize their potential and set healthy, realistic, and optimistic aspirations for themselves. And whereas the Newington school counselors are integral to student success and help to increase student achievement and provide a much needed resource for students, parents, teachers, and administrators. And whereas it is the desire of the Board of Education that school counselors should be made aware of their appreciation. We do hereby proclaim Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 as Newington School Counselor Appreciation Day. Therefore, be it resolved that we urge all the citizens of our community to join with us in actively expressing gratitude to our school counselors who represent an investment in excellence in our community. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Newington Board of Education is directed to spread this resolution upon the minutes of this meeting and to provide a suitable copy for presentation. Would you like to come up and accept this?
Yes, here.
Oh,
Mr. Corn?
I shocked you.
I'm shocking. Aren't I? Like, do you need a picture
Me, that
first?
was shocking. Oh, do I-
Just for presentation. It's not up, down.
Yeah.
So on behalf of the school counseling department, I just want to thank the Board of Education for your ongoing support. I think this proclamation kind of states the difference between what a guidance counselor was and a school counselor is today, is that we do so much more than we have in the past when we had the term guidance counselor, and we really, foster school counseling and helping students find their path. As Dr. Brahma would know, I am the man of always saying several pathways and finding different pathways for our students. So on behalf of my team, I just would like to say thank you for this recognition.
All right, I'll open it up to, do we have anyone online that would like to speak or? But I can open up to board comments as well. Okay.
First, I just want to say congratulations to Christina. I think it's just wonderful. I think we started talking about Stop the Stigma probably a couple years ago on the board with Mr. Branda, and really having you come here to be able to speak on it is so exciting. Okay. But I just want to say congratulations. I think one of the things that's great when we talk about our everyday hero is the going above and beyond, going above and beyond, kind of like, oh, we talk about it's not just the classroom. It's not just the one, role that you have. It's the multitude of roles that you have, and the work you do outside to then make things happen just speaks to, I think, exactly what that everyday hero is. And I want to thank you also for dedicating your time on Youth Adult Council now. It's wonderful to have you on. So I just think it's just great to see all of the ways you're impacting our students inside the classroom, outside the classroom, and then even outside the schools. So congratulations. And Mr. Korn, thank you for all that you do. I think we've had many conversations on policy committee and have had some really great education for us as a board about what counselors do now. I think there's been this misnomer that it's simply we're just career counselors, or it's one thing or another, that it's just so small, such a small part of what you do. And the need you're meeting of our students today, as those needs continue to grow, is just incredible. So thank you to you, your staff, for helping our students every single day. Like I said, it's not just the classroom, it's everything else too. So thank you.
Mr. Holleran?
I want to just second the remarks made by the vice chair. I think when it comes to everyday heroes and with school counseling, both of those, in my mind, show a certain level of achievement that's above and beyond. And I think one of the things we tend to forget about when somebody goes above and beyond is that the level of sacrifice that needs to be made to get there. Personal sacrifice. You're doing it because you believe in something larger than your own self-interest. You believe in the school, you believe in the kids, and you believe in their future. And that's something that you have to take with you every day into that building, no matter how hard it is. I go to work some days and I don't want to go. You go to work some days you don't want to go, but once you're there, you truly make a difference. And that needs to be recognized beyond the proclamation. As a parent, I'm recognizing you. Thank you. And I think kind of a final thought on that is, you said the difference between being a guidance counselor and a school counselor. And I think for, I'm old, but, there's always, how do you make a good worker? How do you make a good, productive, contributing part of society? How do you make a smart kid? We've been able to do those things, but I think when you look at it in the guise of school counseling, it's how do we make a full human being, a full adult in everything that means beyond the academics, beyond the work ethic. How do you make somebody who is truly fully realized? And I don't think you can do that without good counseling. So thank you.
Hi, Mr. Sharma.
Yeah, so I want to quickly thank the Everyday Hero and also the counseling department. So, I know what you guys, you've been doing is like going above and beyond. So really appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.
Okay, yes, definitely extending my appreciation as well. I know that you definitely make a difference in every student's life, middle and high school and high school levels. Still working on the elementary level counselors, but maybe someday. But definitely, I know that there are students lined up all day outside the doors of those offices, and it's definitely making a difference in their lives. So thank you for everything you do. And look forward to hearing your presentation a little bit later on. Okay, so we are opening now up to public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. If you're online, you can raise your hand. In the room, you can come up to the mic at the end of the table. Just make sure the green light is on. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. So anyone in the room can feel free to come up. No one online yet.
Hi, my name is Jonas Roberts, 6 Pfister Drive here in Newington. I'm also a 3rd grade teacher at Anna Reynolds. Mr. Korn at the high school knows my 4 children. I'm speaking as a father and as a teacher. 3 of my children have graduated. My 4th is a senior this year. All of them have chosen very different pathways, and all of them have been very well prepared for the pathways they have chosen. So I'm very grateful to Newington Public Schools for that. I'm here speaking for my students and for the future generations of students here in Newington when I read my statement tonight. I am here to ask the board to do their part in fully funding the education budget. When the budget is not fully funded, the students in our town suffer. The current budget does not fully fund positions needed to service our neediest students. The plan, as I understand, is to shift the schedules of existing experts in their fields to cover positions that are not being filled. This budget does support our preschoolers and our kindergartners, which I extremely applaud and appreciate. But I want to be assured that those students, once they leave pre-K and kindergarten, get those same supports and experts available to them to provide any needed support they need along the way, just as my children had when they went to school. My hope is that if they have those supports, they will have a positive and successful educational experience from preschool right through graduation. I strongly urge all those involved to fully fund the budget. Our neediest students deserve the opportunity to meet success in their own way. Students should have the opportunity to work with interventionists who are experts in their field. Interventionists are an important ally to classroom teachers, students, and their families. As I stated last time I spoke at a budget meeting, when a car has a bad spark plug, the engine will still run. The car will move forward, but you can feel the difference. If you don't replace the spark plug, the car will eventually break down. Unfortunately, we are losing staff to attrition, retirement, but those positions are not being filled. And we just can't keep doing that. So we can't function as a school district if we don't replace those positions after retirements, or if people leave for another job, or if a grant expires. My hope is that we will have a budget that looks to the future, knowing that that may happen, and that we can have money set aside for those positions. We cannot state that we are serving all students if we are reducing positions of our most qualified staff that work with our neediest students. I urge all those involved in the budget process to work together to ensure that every school has full-time interventionists to meet the needs of any student that might require their expertise, to make sure if there is a learning gap, that it is closed, and to provide a positive and successful educational experience for all students. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Erica Wetzel. I live at 92 Old Musket Drive. I am a parent. I have two children, one in middle school at Martin Kellogg in 6th grade, and one at Anna Reynolds in 3rd grade. I am the past PTO president at Anna Reynolds, which I've loved serving, and I've been on the committees, many of the board positions. And I'm here tonight. It's my understanding that there are current staff positions that will be affected by the loss of the ESSER grant funding. And it is critical that the Board of Education, Dr. Brummett, parents, the town council, the community really know about the impact and the trickle down. And that's what I really want to focus on tonight, is the trickle down effect that it has in our community. I'm here tonight to advocate that the Board of Education and Dr. Brummett find a way to financially support those positions which were originally funded by this ESSER grant. An example of what I'm referring to as a trickle-down effect would be an interventionist position that was originally grant funded at John Wallace Middle School may be eliminated, or the funding might be exhausted, causing a shuffle in our personnel between the buildings. And I feel that, first of all, parents should be aware of these changes that are going on, and have more transparency and clarity around these changes, because when making these changes, it's so important to recognize the relationships that have been made in each of these schools, and many of the children and their families are going to be affected by these. In our school, in our town in Newington, we pride ourselves on making connection and building a really strong foundation and community. And I would hate to think that that's not a value that's considered within this once we have forged these amazing relationships. I look around this room and I am seeing here the impact tonight of the Anna Reynolds community and teachers and staff that are just warm, friendly faces to me. And as a parent, as a past PTO president, and it really makes such an impact to be here tonight and to be able to speak on their behalf and to recognize, we heard tonight earlier in about the everyday heroes. And I really feel like that should be given out to everybody, you know, because everybody is truly an everyday hero. And when we speak about these positions and these interventionists that are here tonight, they make such an incredible difference. Both of my children have worked with different interventionists and people that have been critical to their education and fostering their growth and development. And it would be just devastating to lose these support staff. So I am just urging you and encouraging you to find the money to support these positions so that our children and our community at large doesn't miss out. So thank you so much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Jennifer Rodriguez, 71 Northwood Road. Good evening. As many of you know, I am an educator and parent in town. I have been following the budgetary process as an informed resident and have come to you tonight as an informed citizen to ask that you reconsider, find a way, get creative, and amend the budget to ensure that the interventionist positions are kept across the district. I've had the privilege and opportunity to work with Dr. Harrison and the equity and inclusion specialist on the district equity team for the past 3 years. And at its core, I've learned the importance of advocating for historically underserved and marginalized communities to ensure just and equitable outcomes, which is part of the district's mission. I'm sitting before you having an uncomfortable conversation to advocate for them. My understanding is that there are reductions in the workforce due to attrition and retirement planned for the coming year. Thankfully, no layoffs. These reductions are being used to shift staff around internally, and on paper, those shifts seem absorbable, but in reality, they have serious ripple effects for Newington's community of learners. An interventionist position being removed at one school affects the population of 2 schools. Now, one person is shared by 2 schools, effectively cutting the number of students who can be supported in half. For example, a math interventionist position is being split across 2 buildings with 60% of their time in one and 40% of their time in another. What happens to the other 40% of the students in one of those buildings that can no longer be supported due to the split? That's approximately 20 to 25 students in just one elementary school. That's a classroom full of students. Who are the students most affected? The interventionists are the primary service providers for academic goals mandated by IEPs. Approximately a third of their caseload are students with IEPs. In addition, many of the students receiving intervention supports may be students of color and/or grappling with food insecurities, homelessness, qualifying for free and reduced lunch, English language learners, and the like, our most vulnerable students. The impact of these reallocations will be significant in schools like Reynolds, where approximately 50% of the population are students of color. If the mission is to close the gap to ensure just and equitable outcomes, cutting interventionist positions will have the opposite effect. COVID taught us that there is no substitute for in-person learning. Study after study speaks to the importance of funding direct student-facing services, yet that is what is slated to be reduced. How will this provide just and equitable outcomes? According to the presentations over the past few weeks, the students' needs have not lessened, they've increased, and if the trends and projections hold true, there will be more need with less direct student support. I come to you tonight asking you to keep the interventionists. Please help us close the gap and support student learning. I know that isn't an easy ask. I will continue to advocate for all students at the local and the state level for funding and positions that ensure just and equitable outcomes for Newington students and their families. My hope is you will join me in that. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there any?
Hello, I'm Amanda Miano, and I live at 67 High Ridge Drive. I am a parent of a middle school and elementary school student. I also have another child who will be going into Newington schools within the next year or 2. I have recently learned that there are staff positions that will be affected by the loss of the ESSER grant funding. I am here to ask Dr. Brummett, the Board of Education and Town Council to find it within the budget to fund these positions to keep them as they currently are. I feel without the grant funding without funding for these positions, students will suffer in multiple ways. One of my students receives reading intervention currently and has since second grade. She also received math intervention in elementary and middle school. If it was not for the intervention that my child received, she would be in a bad place, not only academically, but mentally. Her mental health struggled tremendously last year by having a reading intervention teacher that she did not connect with very well. This year, she has made great progress with a different teacher who she connects with. The connection my student has made with her current and past interventionist has shown this is not just about having the position filled with anyone or moving someone from school to school, but someone who is familiar within the school community throughout the full day. If positions are eliminated or staff is moved due to this funding going away, it will have a great impact in all aspects. Although one of my children doesn't receive intervention, teachers within her elementary school community and intervention, her elementary school community looks forward to seeing and speaking with these teachers on a daily basis. I want to ask Dr. Brummett, the Board of Education, Town Council to take it into consideration, the impact of the housing developments that are going on as well, and the impact of students that may need more intervention. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come up? I don't see anybody online. No. Okay. So for everyone that just spoke, we do have our budget conversation happening later on the agenda. You're welcome to stick around and hear that discussion. But first, we have to move on to the approval of our minutes. We can do them at once, or one each. Okay, Mr. Holloran's got it? Perfect.
We got a long night, so
I
we checked
will,
Robert's rules and this is allowed.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go through
ahead.
them.
Go for it.
When I say I checked, I mean Deborah did all the work. But in regards to the minutes for January 8th, 2024, January 24th, 2024, February 7th, 2024, February 12th, 2024, and February 13th, 2024, I move to approve the contested agenda as presented. Consent agenda, not contested. Consent agenda
Yes.
as presented.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, standing committee information. We have our student rep here. Is Megan online or is it just you, Bella? Okay, well, I hope she gets better soon. Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. It's very nice to meet everyone new here and see everyone actually face to face again. If we have not met, I'm Isabella Longo and I'm the Junior Board of Ed Rep. And I'll just get into the report. So some of you might have heard NHS welcomed a new staff member, Benny, who is a hyperallergenic golden doodle who will be working as an emotional support dog on a part-time basis. Some upcoming events, the yearbooks are currently on sale till March 1st. On March 14th, there will be a graphic t-shirt spirit day in memory of Arlissa, Florida. SATs are coming up on March 21st. There will be a career fair on March 26th, and Spring Pep Rally is March 27th. The NHS band, or jazz band, had a blast at the Yukon High School Jazz Festival. NHS Drama is preparing for their performance of Mamma Mia from March 14th to 16th, and I'm a little biased, but I do really recommend seeing it. So some exciting things with sports. Katie Bulkey was invited to compete at the Melrose Games, and her new PR time has moved her national rank up to 7th place in 2024. Bella Kakuta has scored her 1,000th point and is the fastest player in NHS history to score their 1,000th point. The Nighthawks girls ice hockey team will play the CCC finals against East Coop on Friday, 2/23 at Trinity. Girls basketball has a home game against South Windsor on Monday at 5:30. Boys diving has a CCC's North Championship on the 28th, and boys swimming has theirs on March 1st. Cheerleading had a full sweep for their all-conference, with all 5 athletes, Jamie, Zay, Sarah, Maddie, and Bella, making all-conference. The senior class is holding an apparel fundraiser to lower the cost of prom tickets. The fundraiser ends on February 26th. Book club is currently reading Girls Like Us by Randy Pink for their upcoming meeting on March 6th. Class of 2026 will be having a fundraiser at Rooster and Company in Newington Center on March 4th at 5 to 8 p.m. Stuco held a Candygram fundraiser and delivered the candies on Valentine's Day to spread some cheer. They are currently working on games and fundraisers for Pep Rally and a Boston trip, which would be the first trip field trip Stuco would be holding, and would give the opportunity for the top point earners in Stuco to have a fun day in Boston. Key Cub is currently working on their Earth Day service project. For the event, they will be cleaning up several parks in Newington. Martin Kellogg is now off book and is rehearsing for their musical Newsies. Performances will be on March 21st to the 23rd. Ski Club took their trip to Mount Southington for Martin Kellogg. Middle schools and elementary schools had spirit days to celebrate school counseling week, like college t-shirt day to celebrate the hard work counselors do to further students' education after high school, and hats off to kindness day to celebrate random acts of kindness. The author of Lunch Lady and Jedi Academy visited Anna Reynolds. He presented on his creative process and inspiration and his journey as a writer. Anna Reynolds welcomed Archie, their new emotional support dog. Archie is sorry if I pronounce this wrong, Bacho's 2-year-old corgi who is certified as an emotional support animal and is working towards their therapy dog certification. Thank you.
Are there any board comments or questions?
Finally, oh my gosh, I feel like every time you've been off, I've been on. Oh my God, so nice to finally see you, and thanks for coming out. And I just wanted to point out, she's like, oh, I'm biased a little bit because I think it's gonna be a good play. Like, she's the lead in the play. Like, I just wanted to point that out. So she's the lead in the musical. So everyone get their butts there and see, is it blue cast or gray cast here?
I believe I'm Bluecast.
Okay, I put you on the spot there. I'm so sorry. But just wanted to say, as always, thank you so much for it. I think it's great to always hear from our students about not only high school, but all of it. And as always, we are very excited to have our arts, our sports, everything. And, we welcome you to stay for the budget talks because I know it'd be so fun for you. But we just want to say thank you so much. And if you have anything you would like to add or take out with the budget, feel free, let us know.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Sean.
I mean, I just think I have to say thank you. You're the whole reason we all exist here, right? Like, if it wasn't for the students, there's no point of this. And so hearing it from the students directly is vital. It's not just nice to have, it's critical to have. Apparently the support at Anna Reynolds is a big hit. I saw a lot of smiles and head nods when the name was mentioned. And congratulations on the role in Mamma Mia. I was in drama too. I made a lot of long-lasting friends at a time where it wasn't cool to be in athletics and in drama at the same time, but yeah, right. Kind of. It was the 90s. So thank you for everything that you do. And I made long-lasting friendships through all of those endeavors, and I hope you do the same. Thank you.
I just want to thank Isabella, right? Yeah. Thank you so much for coming by, and thank you for the update. So we appreciate you coming by. Thanks.
Hi, Brittany.
Just to echo what everyone said, thank you so much for coming. I will be going to Mamma Mia. I'm excited about that. Good luck to everyone who's taken the SATs. I remember that it isn't fun, so good luck to everyone out there studying. And if we could get Benny and Archie, the emotional support dogs, to come here, that would be great.
Yeah, I just like to say thank you for everyone in this room, like everyone. We do really feel supported. And I just like to echo how happy everyone is about the emotional support dogs. It may seem like a silly thing, but I know like the students, especially at the high school, really, really excited about that and really brings a lot of joy. I've seen it a couple of times in the hallway and it's really nice.
Thank you so much, and congrats on your cheer, right? You said Bella, but I know it's you. I saw your jumps, they're amazing. Do you have another competition coming up? One more, right?
Yeah, so we have one this weekend and then we have states.
Awesome. Well, good luck to you, and thank you for your update. Okay, so there were no more committee meetings, so we can move on to Dr. Barmett's report and our update on mental health.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to invite Christina Redmond up, and she's brought some students with her. If you want to, you can present at the head of the table, or you can do the, talk show host edition. So while Christina and her students are making their way up, for those folks that don't know, this was a grant that was written over the course of about a year. It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. We did have some support toward the second iteration from a grant writer, which apparently did put us over the top. But more importantly is the work that Christina is doing on behalf of our kids. There's things she'll share tonight about the value of this position. It is a 3-year grant, thankfully, so we'll have it for at least 3 years. And I've asked Christina and her students to go into a bit more depth on what her day looks like, what types of programming she's able to provide. And I thought it is worth mentioning, we've seen a sharp decline of our student disciplinary issues due to marijuana this year. I can't directly attribute that to this position, but it is an astonishing change. So with that, I will present for you, and you can just let me know when to advance the slides.
Thank you, Dr. Brumman. Thank you, everyone, for allowing us to present. I'd like to thank, first of all, before I get started, Dr. Brumman, Mr. Korn, and Ms. Tigno for all of their support. We found out about this so late, literally, I think it was a couple weeks before school started. And, didn't know what to expect with having it happen so last minute, but everyone's been so supportive and we've been collaborative, and it's made all the difference. So I just wanted to say that before we started. I'm Christina Redmond, and I am a social emotional school counselor and a mental health teacher. So I'm playing 2 roles, which has been really awesome. And I would love to introduce 2 students who have been with me since their freshman year, either actually in both the clubs and the class. So I'll allow them to introduce themselves. I'll start with Ava.
I'm Ava Tavares. I'm a junior, and I'm currently enrolled in the mental health seminar class, and I've been in Stop the Stigma since my freshman year.
My name is Patience Pez. I'm a senior at Newington High School. I took the mental health class last semester, and I've been in Stop the Stigma for 4 years now.
And unfortunately, Patrick Turner was not able to come. He wasn't feeling well, so he was going to join us. But when I think about this grant and this position, I try to kind of break it down into three pieces, and that's the class, it's the substance use counseling and the extra support I've been able to provide, and then kind of the community outreach and prevention programs that we're trying to build. So I'll kind of go into those 3 pieces. Thank you, Dr. Barney. Go ahead and advance. So, like I said, with the grant being a very late notice in the summer, we did have a lot of students, and Mr. Korn had to kind of work hard to get some people back into the class, but we were able to run that class this fall. We had 1 section with 18 students. Patience was in that class, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. I was actually able to do something really unexpected, and that's not on the slide, but I was able to go into the freshman study halls and kind of work with them and get a chance to meet them, which was really nice. And we just did time management lessons, like organization, those things that students really still do need even at the high school level. And it was great to make those connections. This semester, we have 3 sections. We're up to 3, and there's about 50 students enrolled. Ava is currently in a class now. And so far next year, it's projected around 100 at the moment. So 100 students have enrolled in the course. So those are some numbers. In terms of kind of what we've been doing in the class, I've had so much fun kind of creating it. I've asked students for their input. Students have great ideas, and I just wanna say thank you for that. I'm very open to like what's working, what's not working, what do we want to change. I have already made a few changes with semester 2 based on some of the feedback, and I feel like it's going really well. But if I were to break down our class into the 3 topics, it's kind of, we start with self-awareness and identity. I really think that's the foundation of mental health. If you're not self-aware, then it's hard to make changes or recognize things. So we really we get into that. And we go into unit 2, which is managing your mental health. And so that's a lot of kind of learning those coping strategies and talking about various mental health disorders. We also are doing the 3rd unit, which is our substance use and addiction awareness unit. That has, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I wanted to show you kind of how we started class. I brought a few little props here, but as the class is going, you want to practice this daily. So not waiting until we get to the 2nd unit, but we start with gratitude. So we have a gratitude jar. Each class has their own jar. We write gratitude every day as a mental health practice, and they're anonymous. And so I'll just read a couple that students have written, and we read them out loud to start class. That's how we start class every day. And it says, like this one says, I'm grateful I can be myself around my friends without judgment. I'm grateful to be able to talk openly about mental health in this class. And I'll just read one more. I'm grateful for long car rides listening to music. So we don't know who they're from, but it gives us a sense of, I don't know, do you guys want to say anything about it? I mean,
Yeah, it's like a sense of community, you don't know who is writing what, but you get like the general gist of how people feel in the class.
Yeah, and also knowing that like what people are grateful for, it also gives you a perspective of not only you being grateful for similar things, but also the things that you have in your life and how you're grateful for that as well.
Yeah, thank you. We also have a journal prompt that we kind of write in. We do gratitude, we do journal prompts in like the middle of the week, and then we do Feel Good Friday. So again, another establishing that mental health strategy. When you do something kind for somebody else, you naturally feel better about yourself. So we're just trying to make these part of our daily routines and practices as we go through the class. And of course, when we get to kind of that unit 2, we learn a lot more of those strategies. And then we've experimented with a couple projects. There's a couple pictures on the slide. One of those, I'll start with the one on the left. That is the identity drawing. So that goes with our 1st unit. And so we do a lot of self-exploration. It's what do we see versus what do we hide? So what do people see of us on the outside versus what's going on with us in the inside? And we've established a very close, trustworthy culture within our classroom. And it's amazing how comfortable people have been sharing just openly about who they are. I'm going to skip over to the picture on the right. When we did our addiction awareness unit, basically what that was, students had to give up something for 3 weeks. and they had to track how they felt, what their triggers were. And it doesn't have to be just like we think addiction, we think substances, but addictions can be social media, they could be gambling, hoarding, like there's a lot of addictions. And so we tried to bring kind of what would it be like for you to give something up. And so Officer Bougie, I like to thank him too, but he had a role in this. So Brianna is in the picture, and she gave up social media for 3 weeks. And he said, I bet you can't do it. And they made a bet that if she did it, she could shave his head. So she had the honors of shaving his head. And that was a really fun day. So it's been great just how everyone's just kind of like, it's just evolved, and it's been this really cool thing. So Patience, would you like to share what you gave up?
I gave up social media, but I wasn't really good at it. And I did re-download TikTok a couple times, but
that's part of the process to bring awareness of, you could relapse and recognize why that might happen. So we talked about that. And I know, Ava, you haven't done this yet, but you will. And then the middle picture, we did some vision boards, which is kind of like, who do we want to be now? And, or who, like a future, and Patience brought hers with her.
this is mine.
Yeah. So
I really highlighted kindness in the beach because that's really my happy spot, and just things that were important to me to get me going every morning when I see it.
Yeah. Some students say they leave the smaller versions. There were different sizes. I don't know if you could tell from the picture, but some of them are leaving them in their cars as their reminder. So that was a fun project that we did at the beginning. Okay. All right, we can advance. And Patience is going to talk about at the end of I should say, like, I don't want to say unit 4, but to close the seminar, students had a choice of what they would want to do as an end of course project. And one of those was community service. One of those was they made a PSA announcement. They either did that with a friend in the class, or they interviewed somebody else around mental health topics. Others were creating a website. I had a group of boys that did men's mental health, which was really interesting. I enjoyed that one. And then the last choice was to present, and Patience is going to talk about that piece.
So for my presentation, my friend Emma and I chose to do it on substance use and peer pressure and how they tie in together. And it was really interesting to talk to the middle schoolers because it's kind of like a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. Because middle school is kind of like an age where you sort of start to learn about mental health, but a lot of issues don't really surface until high school. So because we were able to go and talk to them, I feel like the feedback that we got afterwards was really good because they felt more aware about things, and they were kind of like, it was just good to feel like they could advocate for themselves and they were just aware of mental health concerns because they are real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we had 4 groups that kind of rotated with the groups at John Wallace, and the counselors and Mr. Diaz were great in collaborating with that, and it was a great memory that I'll always have. And hopefully we'll be going to Kellogg in the spring to do it with semester 2. So that's the plan. Okay, thank you, Dr. Brummett. Go on to the next one. I'm trying to speak fast. There's so much to say. I'm trying to consolidate it. We've had tied into all the themes that we've done in the class, we were fortunate to have a lot of guest speakers come. One of our guest speakers was Tatum Robel. She's a licensed family and marriage therapist, but has done a lot of work with anxiety, and she kind of talked to our class about a lot of topics, but mostly kind of like how the brain works in relation to mental health. And I think, a lot of people don't know what's really going on in the brain. And so that was a good presentation, and hopefully we could get her back for semester 2. We also had our very own Mr. Tom Frabel and Parker McGrath, who's a former student, and they've both given me permission to use their names, but they gave some very raw, very honest, they shared their stories on their recovery, and it definitely impacted students and myself. And so I thank them tremendously for sharing that and speaking to our classes about that. And lastly, I'd like to also thank Kristen Freeman. She came when we did the managing your mental health. She came in and she did a block day lesson on mindfulness, guided breathing. We didn't get into yoga, but we talked about it, and the students really enjoyed it. So one of my goals is to expose them to different ways of managing your mental health, because, you know, not everyone will be able to try this or mindfulness and breathing and all of that. Or I also like to get an art therapist in, and, you know, what works for someone might not work for somebody else. I'm trying to give them exposure to all different people and ways that they could help manage. So thank you, Kristen. These are, I don't need to read all of these, but these were just some comments from the fall, some of the students from the fall. I'll just read one, and Patience is here, she could read her own. So, but I'll read Jack. Jack S said, it was a great course. Wait, it was a great course. Helped me learn how to set more boundaries and learn more about my mental health. We do talk a lot about boundaries in the class too. Emma V, I feel like this class made me feel more aware about my mental health and reminded me the importance of it, and that it's okay to talk about your feelings. And I guess I'll just read Ella, but the substance use unit and hearing individual stories about substance abuse and addiction was the most impactful for me, and I really enjoyed hearing and learning about their stories.
I said, I'm so proud of the curriculum of the class and thankful for how much I have learned. I am grateful that I am aware and have been given the opportunity to further learn about substance use. I feel as if nicotine use or marijuana is normalized among teens, and this class reassures the fact that it is not okay and it is not normal.
Yeah, I actually forgot to mention Vicki Adams, who has also come into and Kayla Hendrickson. I should mention, Kayla works for the town on the town side as a social worker, and they've also presented to the class as well. Kayla did one on anxiety, and Vicki did a presentation on vaping. So we'll continue to have them come back as well. The second piece, I'll just kind of segue into the second piece that I've been working on is the substance use counseling and extra support. So the great thing is that I had a lot of flexibility in the fall semester, and I was able to, I tried to count, I lost count, but I was probably seeing consistently, you know, on a rotating basis, about 40 students that would go to their counselor or had made a previous connection with me as a Spanish teacher, because again, the school counselors and social workers, our support staff, every teacher here, everyone is giving their all and doing their best. And so I was just happy I was able to assist with that, and they were able to come to me. So I was seeing a lot of students on the extra support side, and anything ranging from academic, personal, social, emotional. Unfortunately, don't have as much flexibility in that end because I'm teaching more classes, so it's a little bit of a trade-off. But on the other end, the substance use counseling, so what we've done is we're trying to create this referral system. So if students are caught with a substance, mostly THC, but also, you know, I've been talking to students with nicotine, both referred to me. I have about 10 students that were referred, and I did have a couple students that voluntarily, that voluntarily sought out my assistance, that are trying to stop either the use of nicotine or THC. And so basically my role in this is I have been just trying to explore the why and trying to get to the root of the why, without bias, without judgment, just having them, providing a safe space for them, also providing some education of, you know, and a lot of them know, but sometimes just hearing it and seeing, I have a slideshow and we do that and we set goals and I try to gauge where they're at in their cessation. I was fortunate enough to take a tobacco cessation training earlier, and it was like a 3 or 4 day it was a very long event. Kayla was with me and I learned a lot from it. And I've been able to kind of revise my approach after that training. So that was really helpful. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, there's a lot of other underlying factors in there that we're doing our best on this in the school system to, you know, help students with substance use, but it's usually multifaceted. So, okay. Almost done. So just 2 more slides. Ava is going to talk about, you know, well, Stop the Stigma is kind of what kind of created all of this and kind of has given me the opportunity. And I really do want to thank students that had started Stop the Stigma when I lost my brother 5 years ago to substance use. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank the support of the students along the way. So this club kind of created this position, so to speak. But Ava's going to talk. Ava and Patience have been with me since their freshman year in the club. And so they'll just talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so I want to first talk about my experience in Stop the Stigma Club. So I did not know Miss Redmond. I didn't have her as a Spanish teacher. I heard about the club and then I just decided to join. Being able to be in an environment with people who want to be there and want to learn about mental health strategies and how to help other people is really helpful, especially because you're able to open up about your feelings and then other people know that they aren't alone. So with that, last year we created a bulletin board and it was about what does mental health mean to you? And we had all of the homerooms write on index cards like what mental health meant to them. And then we put them, as you can see in the picture all the way to the left, in the mental health. And then we had, for our mental health awareness week, we had themed days with different clothing. There was a lot of green incorporated since that is the color for mental health awareness. And then we had our fundraiser with mental health bracelets and positive affirmation stickers. And then we had a survey that really opened all the students' eyes and a lot of our teachers' eyes on what students are going through, which has really helped our curriculum. And yeah.
And do you want to talk about our plan for this year?
Yes, our plan for this year is we have our 2 bulletin boards on the right. That is what we are planning to put on the bulletin boards in our school. So the first one is be kind to yourself, and we're just going to write messages on ways you could be kinder to yourself and affirmations. And then a take what you need bulletin board, where we are hoping to have kind of the same idea as what we did last year with the index cards going to homerooms, and people can write little affirmations about hope, love, kindness.
Yeah. Thank you, Eva. Yes, when we do Mental Health Awareness Week, the whole school is involved in that. So thank you for that. All right. And the last, I would say the third kind of role that I have is community outreach and school-wide assembly. So we have the guest speakers in the class, but we're really trying to bring more awareness to the whole school. So doing, finding speakers it's definitely something as a work in progress because we want to see the speakers before we host them. And so, I've been working with Dr. Brummett and Carol LeBrecq and Ms. Tigno and Mr. Korn on kind of seeing what's out there. We had some speakers in the past, so hopefully we'll have some new ones coming along. I'm kind of actually on the right-hand side, but let's see. We've been collaborating with youth services. So we're looking to do a mental health and substance use fair next year. I'd like to incorporate a Red Ribbon Week. I don't know in either year 2 or year 3 of the grant. They do it in Southington where I live. They have the whole community involved. I would love to get that going. It's in October for Addiction Awareness Week. So I'd love to do that. I'd like to provide more parent workshops. If I can, it's a lot, but that's one of my goals coming down in year 2 and 3. And then something that's coming up, those of you who are parents in the district or have friends in neighboring towns. We are, again, collaborating with youth services, and Kayla and I are going to be hosting an evening event on April 4th, and we are viewing Screenagers. We viewed it in West Hartford earlier this fall, and basically it's kind of like a documentary that addresses social media and substance use, and it breaks it into nicotine, THC, alcohol, and opioids. And so we're going to have kind of like an interactive kind of pause the video every 15 minutes, have a little brief discussion, move on to the next. We have a lot of vendors. We have 10 to 12 community. We've reached out into the community. So we're going to have a lot of vendors there. And hopefully it'll be one of our first events. Hopefully we'll be start spreading the word out to get, again, more community involvement and just raising awareness, both mental health and substance use. And it's geared for middle school, grades 5 through 12. I actually brought my daughter when I viewed it in West Hartford. So I think that's it. And just the last slide is another thank you. Just thank you for your time. I know that was a long, I probably went over 15 minutes. So, but thank you everybody for listening, and just been really exciting opportunity, and I'm very grateful for it. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to patients and Ava. Does the board have any comments or questions for our presenters? Sam, go ahead.
I want to quickly thank Miss Redmond, right? Miss Redmond, and then is it Patrice, Patience, and Ava, right? Thank you so much for coming, and the work that you do is amazing work, and and I hope like other schools should do something similar. So thank you so much.
Mr. Halloran.
I'll keep it brief. As somebody who personally went through a family and grew up in an environment that was directly impacted by substance abuse, I can't thank you enough, because it's not just the person going through the substance abuse that gets affected. It is their whole world around them that gets thrown upside down. And I really do like that you're reaching out to how to be kind to yourself. I think I grew up in a generation where you kind of learn that lesson through getting those hits and bumps through life, that you finally realize that to be truly kind to others, you have to be authentically kind to yourself and accepting and forgiving of yourself. And once you're able to do that, you can find some real strength, and that's where you can do some real help. And the work that you're doing is really, really helpful. Thank you.
That's what you were.
Yeah, just honestly so grateful, and thank you to your students for kind of helping this along too. I think one of the things that's so powerful about this is that a lot of us, I think, go through a lot, and especially I think it's been really put on a spotlight post-COVID, but also just absolutely it's been an exponential growth. And I think the amount of anxiety, depression, coping mechanisms that aren't healthy being used, I think we just see a real epidemic. It's the fallout from the pandemic. And with that, it's just so important. I wish like every student had that time during the day, like every day, to be able to have that. I wish everyone had that time. But I think it's so important that we're the root cause problem solving here and being able to be preventative in our coping mechanisms. And so it's just great to hear that you're getting benefit out of it. That's one of the things, when we budget this, it's like, what's the student impact? So it's always great to just see that and put a face and stories to the actual impact of our budget, one. But two, I just want to say thank you, because these are real issues. And I think we oftentimes will put this at, like, this isn't just like a feel good class. Like, this is how to live your life. Like, this is part of the adulting 101 that I think every one of us kids will ask for. Like, yes, I need to know, don't worry, financial literacy is on there now. You'll know how to file your taxes, but it's also how to cope with life. And I think we really talk about that as Mr. Holleran said, the whole student. And this is what a portrait of a graduate needs. So thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Newton.
Thank you, Ms. Redmond. I come from a background of 25 years in corrections, and I can say the earlier you intervene, the younger you intervene, the sooner you can show them positive outcomes versus living in a negative outcome for years, generation upon generation. So the younger you can go, the better it's going to be in the long run.
Thank you.
Yeah, just kind of to add on to that, definitely excited that you're bringing it to the middle schools. Looking forward to hearing about Martin Kellogg in the future. But I think, you know, and that was something that we had talked about at the table a couple years ago was, you know, when you came for Stop the Stigma, is like get the middle schools involved. So I think it's wonderful you have this opportunity, and just it's great work. And thank you for bringing your students, because it's really good to hear how it's, you know, impacting them and how they're appreciating it. And it's great that you're looking to your students for ideas and suggestions, so the next course can be even better, and the next section even better than the last. So we're definitely appreciative, and thank you for taking your time and coming here. And definitely also grateful for the community involvement that you're working on. It's definitely important to, you know, you can teach kids in school, but having their parents be able to benefit from it, or you know, other family members, the community as a large, so, or at large. So thank you for working towards incorporating the community as well. And I'm looking forward to the screenagers screening. I will definitely be there with my daughter, because I think that's a good opportunity again. So
Thank you.
see you there.
Yes.
Nice.
We have that covered.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Moving on to our new business item. So the first is the establishment of a firm graduation date.
Yes. Good evening. Well, I realize the way that statute is written in your memo, the board truly does have the ability, thanks to a change in the law, to set the graduation date now. And even if there were to be any more snow days, it would not impact the date of graduation. As it turns out, the recommended date right now is June 14th. That is the last day of school for all kids, and in Newington, that's the 181st day. So even if there were another snow day, we would only go down to 180 days. And then with seniors, many of them are exempt from finals and such, so their school year winds down quite a bit, a few days, if not a week ahead of underclassmen. So we have secured the Oakdale for graduation again this year, which is something that, after much deliberation, is still the chosen place for graduation. And I will turn it back over to board chair for any further comments.
Move the Newington Board of Education approve June 14th, 2024 as a firm graduation date for the students in grade 12 at Newington High School.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on setting the graduation date to June 14th?
I'll be there. It works for me.
Jessica Weaver will be there. Okay. All right. Well, you would probably miss it anyways, regardless of what we said. Okay, so I guess we can call the roll. Vote.
Brittany Carr,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Timothy Newton,
Yes.
Amy Parati,
Yes.
Sam Sharma,
Yes.
Jessica Weaver,
Yes.
Anastasia Yap.
Yes.
June 14th. Mark your calendars. All right. Next is a discussion on MOU for scheduling committee update.
Thank you very much. As members of the board that participated in contract negotiations last year are aware, we did make a commitment to the NTA to have some deliberations about scheduling, particularly at the elementary level where there were concerns relative to planning time. I will turn it over to Mr. Farisi, who has chaired a committee in that regard, for an update and any possible next steps.
So you'll see in your packet a memo G2, and it really is just providing an update on where we are in the process of trying to investigate and learn more about some of the concerns and some of the ways in which we could manage some change around the scheduling at the elementary level. So the MOU or the agreement that was settled upon read that we would, at this meeting, make a determination whether we would make any of those changes, require an additional MOU to the contract, or if further kind of investigation would be required or necessary. The team has been meeting previous to now. The NTA president and myself actually did not chair it. We sat back and allowed the committee to do the work on their own. And then we met with them kind of just in the beginning to launch the team, but also toward the end to see where they were. And at this time, a number of kind of areas of needing further investigation have come up, and we'd like to take a little bit more time to do that. And so this memo is really just, kind of sharing an update with the board to that end, with the hopes that we can continue working as a committee and be able to come back before the end of this school year, the last meeting in June, to be able to provide an update on where we are at that point. And it also references some of the areas that we're looking into that have kind of spawned some additional questioning and investigation and required work with the elementary principals, with the scheduling of next year, and really taking a deeper dive into that, which just required a little longer time than being able to come to this meeting with all the recommendations.
Are there any comments or questions? Go ahead.
Do you have an understanding, Mr. Parisi, of how much time?
Sure. So in the memo, it's clear that we would have to be able to provide that report to you by June of this school year.
And that's enough time, I'm assuming?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. We will.
That
make
was my
sure.
question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. No questions online? No? Okay. We can move on to the Health Benefits Funds Performance Report.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, and during the month of February, I present the preliminary performance of the Health Benefit Fund for the fiscal year that we're in, as well as just refreshing everybody's knowledge about how the fund works and the rule set that surrounds it. So basically, the big informational piece is how well did we do? And unfortunately, you can't say we've done very well this year. On a very simple costs in or contributions in, costs out, as of the end of January, the plan was about $440,000 on the negative side of the formula at this point. That doesn't mean it won't recover. We've had bigger turnarounds than that, where we were $1 million to the good at this time. And then by the end of the year, we were finishing at zero or something very close to that. So $1 million of movement is not unheard of, but it's not, our history so far this year has not indicated that we're going to be able to make up that much ground. In working with the agent of record, he was estimating that we had about a 3% window of improvement in the cost estimate for next year's plan. So if we keep that very simple, $10 million for the plan on the costs that are going out, and a 3% improvement is, if we can achieve that, that will help reduce the health benefits contribution requirement for next year by about $300,000. That'll be about the maximum window. That has nothing to do with the health benefit credit for this year. As of right now, being in a negative position, we really don't have the ability to say we're going to do anything with surplus money, because there is none. And unless there's a massive turnaround in the next few weeks, when I come back during March's meeting for the follow-up memo and status report, unless we're in a positive territory, there will be no motion for anything other than let it roll over and see what happens, if it's good or bad. The way the program is written is the board does have no risk beyond our contributions as long as we make them. So if the fund finishes at the same status we are right now, negative $440,000, the settling up of those claim costs will come out of the reserve fund associated with the program, and that's managed by the town. We do not have to come up with extra money on top of that. Where it does impact us negatively in what our renewal cost will be. So if we've had a bad year where we're 4 or 5% over our estimate this year, we're probably going to be paying an extra 2 to 3% on next year's number. So whatever we can kind of claw back at the final settlement for the final renewal that's done by early April will potentially provide resources we can redirect out of benefits to some other part of the budget. But that's tentative at best at this point. Okay. The other mechanics of the fund have been established in 1996, and the fund has functioned in this capacity ever since. There's been no real changes to the rule set surrounding it. The only major change that was done in the renewal process for the health benefit program was about 3 years ago, where the evolution of the program, the first year that we had it in 1996, 97, I believe generated about $10,000 of prescription rebates that went back to the plan. 4 or 5 years ago, it was generating $400,000 of money coming back to the plan. So again, it's one of those situations where we're obligated by the language of the deal that we have to pay what the agent of record tells us we have to pay. And then whatever benefit accrues back to the plan afterwards, and we'll get that credit if there is one. So we were generating huge credits based on the prescription rebates that were there, and through no fault of our own other than the plan design. And that's basically things change and we have to make it more contemporary. So what was agreed upon was that the estimate of the overall prescription rebates would be taken off the top when we were calculating the contribution for the year. So if we had a contribution of contribution requirement of $10 million, we would have had to pay 9.6 million. And we would basically gotten the rebate all along. And that allowed, the ability to bring down the budget ask, which was a benefit to everybody. So there's no problem with it. Works fine. There's no problems that are attributable to this. But that was the only change that's really occurred since the last 27 years that the plan's been in place. So wish I had better news for everybody. I will be back in about 4 weeks to give you the update, and hopefully I'll have wonderful news. But I can't promise that at this point. So there's no action that needs to be taken. It's highly probable there'll be no action at the next meeting that'll be necessary. So with that, I'll just open up any questions that anybody has.
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Giacomo, was that even if it remains at negative 400,000 till July, the board does not have to pay that money. It's
Correct, right.
the agreement we have with the town is that they absorb any negative losses. So that part, in case the board's worried that might affect financials for the rest of the year, it will not.
Go ahead, Mr. Sharma.
Lou, just a quick question. Did we anticipate a surplus instead of like a negative when we did the budgeting now? Or this is not even part of the budget now?
No, I don't create the budget for this program or for the health insurance program. The agent of record does. Okay. So they do their actuarial calculations, combine it with the claims history. And since this is a partially self-insured program, the town and the board collaboratively pay all the claims that go through. You have two set of guardrails that are on the plan as far as what's called stop loss insurance. One is an individual stop loss. So if any one claim goes over 175,000, the insurance company picks up the rest. Our responsibility stops. And then there's a second one, which is called an aggregate, which is, I believe, 20% of the claims base. So we have a $10 million claim base. if we, and 20% of that is $2 million. If our total claims costs go over $12 million, we stop paying that as well. So you're both protected against that one catastrophic claim that could ruin the plan performance. But if you have a bad year with a lot of, high cost cases that are, getting up close to the stop loss limit, you could, overrun the aggregate, and it just provides those safety nets so the plan doesn't get out of control and have, $5-6 million of the overrun. I mean, the worst it can really have is $2 million, roughly, based on a $10 million. The number is actually a little bit higher, but 20% of the base is really the barometer of the stop loss.
So what I recall, like last year, did we get a huge credit and then that helped us lower our ask? I remember it was like we got a whole bunch of money last year. Was that true or?
Well,
in terms of
at
credit?
this time last year, I want to say we're somewhere around $120,000 was how the calculation worked out as we were trending ahead. Now, I typically advise or recommend to the board that don't get too attached to that money because it's easy come, easy go sometimes. Where the $120,000 to the good in March will be $600,000 to the bad. So I basically recommend a very conservative posture for the board to take. And unless there's really some compelling reason to do something now, is let it roll over and go to the settlement at the end of September. And whatever the benefit is as a result of decent claims performance will allow us to short pay that amount. So if we got a $200,000 health benefit credit, we would short pay the account $200,000 1 month, tell the town to use the credit, and there would be $200,000 available to reallocate for some other purpose within the board operating budget.
Yeah, thanks, Lou.
Are there any other questions for Lou? No. Okay. And this does impact our budget only in the sense that we can't control, obviously, the amount of claims, but since we do have higher than normal year, then our insurance cost for next year is going to increase. So that's what we're budgeting for.
Really,
is
this
the-
time, good performance is what you want to drive down the requirement for next year.
So
But that window closes when the budget is adopted in mid-April. The second part is maybe we have great claims history for the last 3 months and we turn a positive number on the plan. We'll get that back for use next year, but it won't affect the budget. As far as the gross budget, it'll be a reallocation available within the budget to use that money.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to discussion, possible action of our budget process. So I think what will happen is, so currently where we are is the budget that Dr. Brumett and her team has presented us as a superintendent's budget. So first we have to move to adopt the budget as our own, and then we have the ability to make cuts, additions, whatever we choose as a board. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt the budget.
Move the Newington Board of Education adopt the superintendent of schools proposed budget for the 2024-2025 of $88,767,110 or 7.99%.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
It's not binding, right?
This is just
I know what you're saying, but I'm thinking the people that are watching us on TV right now, they're thinking
So-
we're adopting it.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're taking it over as our budget, and before we transmit to the town, we will have the opportunity to make adjustments, discussions, make adjustments as the board sees fit, and then we will also vote, we'll finally vote to transmit it to the town. So this is just so that we can make changes. Go ahead, Ms. Weaver.
I would also say when we transmit it to the town, that is also not final because it's based on what the town will give us. So, correct. So when the town, it will go and Ms. Pratty will go and present to the town council what we, after cuts and adds and whatever, correct, adjustments, I like that, yes. So our adjustments, we transmit it to the town. She and Dr. Brummett will present to the town council. They come back with their budget, and that might be less, has been before, which means we would have to come back to the table. Yeah. So it's final, but with an asterisk. But this is not final by any means.
Okay, if no further discussion, can you please call the vote?
Brittany Carr,
Yes.
Sean Halloran,
Yes.
Yes.
Amy Parati,
Yes.
Sam Sharma,
Yes.
Jessica Weaver,
Yes.
Anastasia Yap.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. Congratulations, everybody. We have a budget. Okay, so I will now turn it over to Dr. Brummett. There were some questions from our last meeting that we will get answers to.
Yes, thank you very much. And for all of our attendees here this evening, we will get to the point momentarily that discusses the intricacies of those changes at Anna Reynolds and the implications relative to Title I grants or title grants in general. But there are some fair number of questions that the board asked us to do some follow-up relative to last several evenings of budget deliberations. The first was the DERG caseload responses for speech and language. We did not get a lot of information from that. But the takeaway is that our caseloads for speech and language are on par with the districts that responded. Some districts a hair lower, some districts a hair higher, but as you can see, our range is 32 to 41 per therapist, and the caseloads average in Berlin around 40, 35 to 40 in Bethel, between 30 and 51 in Waterford, and 31 to 58 in Shelton. And then they go on to give information about how many schools they have and so on and so forth. If the question about whether a new position is warranted for these caseloads, that you could argue that either way, but in terms of our caseloads relative to our comparable peers in our DERG, we're pretty much right within the average range. If there's any questions on that. Okay. There was a bit of discussion the other evening about non-public school evaluations. Generally speaking, there's 2 schools in Newington that are considered, oh, pardon me, got to go back and forth here. There's a state statute that requires any non-public schools in our town, we are required to perform evaluations should a student be referred for special education. So in Newington, that includes Emmanuel Christian Academy and the Southfield School. So last year, or to date, we've done no evaluations at Southfield. And Southfield's like a pre-K to kindergarten center. And Emmanuel Christian, we've done 3 evaluations to date. I met with Ms. Giulioso this morning, and while there are numbers and dollars attached to these evaluations, they are largely, if not exclusively, done by our in-district staff. So the only dollars associated with that is the time that it takes a clinician or a teacher to go over there and conduct an evaluation, or an OT or a PT. It's not that we're being billed for that, but they are having to pull away from their existing schedules to get over there to do these evaluations. If you were to put a number on it, which we did, it's, you know, in the neighborhood of about, thus far this year, about $4,200 worth of manpower that have had to go over to Emmanuel Christian. Year to year, it varies, but it is a state statute as of right now. I would say it's got a minimal impact on our district, but something that's notable. So I don't know if there's any further questions on that item.
Is that amount in our budget, that 4,500?
Not really, because it's existing staff, so we just have to provide release time for those staff members to travel to Emmanuel Christian or to Southfield to do the evaluations. There was also questions about the amount of money that is spent on students who are in magnet schools and are receiving special education services. About the total impact year to year is about between $400,000 and $500,000. But if folks were wondering the breakdown, you know, year to year, it does increase. You can see from 2021, the cost that we have to pay for different services at magnet schools continues to escalate. Some more significantly than others. Special ed teacher costs per hour are going up. Para costs per hour are going up. If there's a social worker involved, you can see this year, it obviously is our highest year to date. There's a footnote here on the bottom of this year's budget that we're paying approximately $484,000 for 34 students who attend Hartford or Craig magnet schools. So on average, if you're special ed and going to a magnet school, Newington is paying about $14,000 to support your education. And there's also, they put another figure in here about what we pay for students who are outplaced, which is a bit of a separate grouping of students, but that's about 4.2 million. And those are students who have highly specialized special needs and need to be in a very unique environment to have their needs met. The average cost per student who is outplaced is about $90,000, but the range is anywhere from $60,000 to $250,000. So this year we have right now 38 students who fit into that category. So as you can see, year over year, those costs go up. We have to pay them. Students have the right to, or their parents have the right to choose to go to a magnet school. And if they are special ed, we have to then fund the cost of their special ed services. So these are monies that we have to allocate in our budget.
Ms. Weaver? So I guess just for like our sake, say we're looking at last year's budget, is it showing up in the special ed lines?
This would be, I believe, Lou, under tuitions, or where do we put the money for kids who are either outplaced or in a magnet school requiring special ed?
Well, we're responsible for the magnet school just for the special ed part of that out of the
Special ed budget.
reimburse the school for it. It would be in one of the tuition line items that we have within the budget.
Within special ed or within another
Special
section? Okay, okay.
Right, the
So-
regular magnet school tuition is part of the Board of Ed program.
Yep.
Where we participation fee of like $6,000, $8,000 a student that we get, and the outbound cost for the $5,000 or so of what the basic tuition is will go through the Board of Ed account, while the special ed reimbursements go through special ed.
But you can see even over the last 2 years, the year prior, we only, quotes, paid $259,000 for magnet school students, and now we're up to $484,000. And that's a function of the increased special ed costs that those schools are charging. Because our numbers of students tends to be fairly stable, who are out in a magnet school as well as requiring special education services. What's not stable is the prices. Those continue to escalate pretty significantly.
Which is then reflected in the 52 to 38 students, but still paying a similar amount.
Correct. Our student count has not gone up much. In fact, in a previous chart, I showed the board that the number of students that we are outplacing to special ed schools has declined, but the cost to educate the few that are still out is substantially higher year to year. And that's not anything that we have any control over, other than doing our best to have in-district programs that meet the needs of the students.
Okay, so I'm just confirming that like 4.2 million is in the allocation of the 12.3 for our like line item last year for special education, if that makes sense.
I'm not sure I'm following that. Is
like the 4.293 for outplacement?
Yes.
That would be in our byline for.
Yeah, it's for this year's budget.
Right.
That is something we budget for in our tuition line for special ed outplaced.
Okay, just making sure it's.
Sam?
Just to clarify, Maureen, so the reason why we pay this is because there are students who live in Newington and they
Yes.
choose to go to a Craig school or
That's
a
correct.
magnet school, And by law, we have to spend the money, right?
That
So
is
there's
correct.
no way around it.
No way
Like-
around it.
All right, just to make sure, so everyone knows. Thank.
And can you just, the difference between last year and this year, it's twice as much for this, about the same amount of students for the magnet school. That's because more students are special ed, or because the cost for the special ed students? has
It's the
increased?
cost. We only went up one student from last year to this year. We had 33 students, this year 34. But look at that jump, 259, 181 to 484, 102. And it's just because they are charging significantly more for special ed services. Because it's only one more student.
And we have no control over
No.
what they're charging.
They have a fair amount of liberty to set those rates. I believe a lot of them are set by CREC, but year to year, they're going up. And as we know in our own district, that certain shortage areas such as special ed teachers, you have to sometimes pay them at a higher rate. And that's probably what's happening in the magnet schools.
Did you have a question, Mr. Newton? Yeah.
Is there any, there's no regulatory oversight of that, is there?
Not really. There are sometimes rates set by CREC, but a district or a magnet school could argue that they have higher expenses. But I would say the gold, quote, gold standard is usually set by CREC for our area. And they give an hourly rate based on their projections. Pretty much, because everyone wants to get the same reimbursement as CREC is getting. So it tends to run a similar strand.
Go ahead, Sam.
Just to clarify, so this is something that happens with all the schools in our DRG, in our.
Absolutely.
Right? And there's nothing we can do. I mean, students are gonna go to Craig, they have the right to go to Craig, and then we have the right, we gotta make sure we pay them, right? So.
I think you've summarized it quite well. Thank you. All right. Then we are Durg D look back. So the board asked to determine or analyze how do we compare to our DIRG in expenditures over the last 3 years or allocations. So because our ask this year is on the higher end for our DIRG at 7.99, not that much higher, we're maybe 0.5% to 1% higher than the DIRG on average. Nothing, I haven't gotten any more districts reporting than I had last time. But when I re-asked my colleagues in our DIRG, I got responses from about 12 districts. And of the respondents, you can see Newington fares on the bottom quartile of that group. So the lowest 3-year average is Shelton, followed by Clinton, followed by Branford, and then us. Everyone else is higher over the 3-year term that we looked at. So that does explain why Newington does need a higher ask this year, because we've been on the lower end for the last 3 years. And in fact, in a moment, I'll show you that we have been on the lower end for the last 10 to 15 years. And that's got a cumulative effect. When you finally have to say, you've done everything you can do to squeeze the nickel till it, I won't finish the sentence, but, eventually you have to have a budget ask as we're having this year. And clearly even that won't cover everything we would like to have in that budget. So this is just an analysis that shows historically the last 3 years we've been on the low end.
Mr. Newton?
Doc, I'm getting mixed signals from other people, and I want to hear it from you. The zero, I'm told it's not a true zero. There was some payback. There was an MOU with the town on that or something. And I'm like, a zero is a zero.
Yeah, we got a 0% increase. Lou, are you remembering any MOU?
There was at the start of the non-lapsing fund, where part of that arrangement was the board had to take surplus funds from what would have been the 15-16 budget year. I think it was over $1 million that was in there, and had to direct that to the non-lapsing fund. And in turn, we got a zero the next year, and we had to utilize the funds we had just put into the non-lapsing fund in that fashion. We did get a second zero around the pandemic, where we had big surpluses that went back, and it was felt that the general budget at that time was adequate because of the circumstances at that point. And there were 2 other years where there was a 0.29 and then a 0.49 budget out of that 10-year window that was there. But there, I believe the non-lapsing fund history is.
It's coming
one
up.
of the
Yeah, we have
illustrations.
another slide on that.
Talk through that in more detail at that point.
So it was truly a zero, but what we were allowed to do, and we've been doing, frankly, ever since, is going into the non-lapsing resources to balance the budget. Yes. Yes.
Did you have a question?
Yeah. I think if there was any MOU, it was the health benefit credit that we could use that the next budget year, but it wasn't definitive of
That was last year.
last year.
Right.
Yeah.
That was when last year,
So
that's
I don't
correct.
think there
That
was, I'm not sure.
allowed for that to be
remember
added to
that.
the base.
Yeah.
Um,
So it wasn't the year we got the zero though.
No, that.
Yeah, there wasn't any MOU during that year, just for Mr. Ian's clarification.
Go ahead, Sam.
So Lou, just to clarify, so when we did get those zeros, we still had teacher contracts that went up every year, right?
Yes.
So I mean, yeah,
Yep.
so it's like, all right, just to, I mean, costs were going up and then we were getting zeros, so.
I think maybe some of the misnomer too is we got, like there was just like, oh, we had all this money for the ARPA, ESSER, and all of these things that were supposed to be. But I think a lot of it was, we shut down March 12th, 2020. Some of that was savings on utilities and just not being here, right? And then we had to budget. That was when we were starting budget. And we went for our first virtual budget. And we had to budget for the next year saying, are we going to be in school or are we not going to be in school? There was then realized savings again from hybrid, where that first part of the year, we're using less utilities, but have to budget for that, but then also have to talk about inflation. We start seeing all of that come up, and the actual federal monies had specific uses, so we could not use it to quote add our budget or just use it on, which is why we come to today, which is that the funds are not going to be of use, which is what we were using them for during COVID. So
to further illustrate, every district on this chart was in the same boat as us, same era, and we still came out in the bottom 4. So that's an important data source as to, where other districts were headed at that time.
And I'm surprised you didn't say it, Ms. Weaver. It's sustainable budgeting, your go-to. So as just proper budgeting, you don't take, it's not proper to take money from a source that's not going to be there next year. So we put money into the non-lapsing fund in 2020 because it was available, like Ms. Weaver said, in the next year. But then we had to take it out, and taking it out for these years that we didn't get as much of an increase at 2.46 and the 4.5, we're taking the money out of non-lapsing, which this year, I think we're able to get by with our 799 currently, able to get by using the remaining of our non-lapsing fund, but it's going to be gone. There's not going to be anything next year or the year after. So I think that this is kind of just showing that we got a zero and we were able to get by for that year, but it wasn't sustainable. So we have contractual obligations. There's so many other things that inflation, like you mentioned, the zero is just for our base budget. So maybe there was an understanding like 100,000 here, 500,000 MOU, but that's not setting us up for success the next year. So we're kind of at this point where over the last 3 years, you can see in this chart, and then you'll see in another chart later on, like our overall 10-year history, I think it is very, very low. And it doesn't cover even like the minimal base contractual obligations that were required. Not to mention all the costs going up and everything. So yeah, like there was maybe an MOU, but it's not a sustainable way to do your budget. So we're kind of at this point now where we don't really have any other pockets to dip into. Go ahead, Mr. Halloran.
So I guess a good way to kind of sum it up in a layman's terms is that our bills were more expensive than our income and we had to dip into savings for multiple years and now there's nothing left. But a quick question, is there in this entire chart that just the entire chart that you're showing, is there any other 0.00% anywhere on this chart?
No.
Okay.
Do you know of any districts that had like a 0 or a 0.49 for like how many we've had? I don't know if you.
I am sure I was talking to a colleague today at the LOB. Yeah, some districts have had zeros, just not in our DIRG. And sometimes it's districts that have significant amounts of grant money and the districts just rely on that to just, not a good plan either, but it's another way to get through when your budgets are really tight. So yeah, I would be dishonest in saying that we're the only district that ever had a zero, but in our DIRG, of the reporting districts, we are the only district that had a zero. Okay.
I'm sorry, Miss Yap, you have your hand up? My screen was zoomed out. Doesn't look like it.
Sorry, I was talking on mute. I apologize.
Okay.
So I know that the time that we did have a zero, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I know the town picked up some of our bills. Newington, obviously the town of Newington. I know we had like a roofing project and different things that need to be picked up. So I know it looks like a zero. We did have an MOU signed, which I understand you're saying is not sustainable. But one of the things is, aren't the contracts done like in December? So my question is this. I know that you do the contracts for the raises and just everything in December, and our budget isn't passed till after. Maybe we should try to figure out, how to handle that in a different way so we're not always like in the negative. You not hear me?
No, you're kind of
No,
breaking
you're
up
breaking
a little
up. Can you
bit.
call again?
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So what I was gonna say is two things. I know that it says we're at a zero, and I know we did an MOU a few times while I've been on the board. I also know that the town did pick up some of the projects that, and pay for them for us to help us when we had that 0% budget. I think it was like a roofing project or something. Lou, correct me if I'm wrong. The second thing is, don't our contracts usually get done in December? So if we're not budgeting properly and we're overspending what we don't have, wouldn't that always put us like in the negative to like end up in the situation we're in? If we're doing our contracts in December and we don't have enough money, we're going to always be in the negative. So is there something we can do to fix that? And Lou, can you address this, please? Because we spoke about this for the last 2 years in regards to like your contractual obligations are done in December, but you don't have enough money to fulfill them for the upcoming year. So we're always in the negative. And I'm not saying we don't need to find a way to not, be in this, but we're doing the same thing every single year. And then the town is, and make sure we said that, they did pick up some of the slack when we had that 0%, like the roofing project and other things. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
The town used capital funds to pay for the roof, so that would have nothing to do with the operating budget. And that was at the determination of the town manager, but there was no allocation or bill paying of the operating costs. We've never run in the negative because we do budget appropriately. We project what contracts are going to cost. Where we run into the issues is the low allocations year after year and how to grapple with that. Lou, I don't know if you have anything to add.
On the funding of the roof project that was done for Newington High School, the structure in many communities, when you have a substantial capital outlay required, either you need the town to go and sponsor a bonding package for the arrangement, or they have to put it on their pay-as-you-go schedule. There is no capacity within the board's operating budget for me to drop in a $2 million roof project and take it on in that fashion. We just don't have the capacity. So part of the dual responsibility between the town and the board is, for the most part, on big dollar items, we have to rely on the town. Like with the Anna Reynolds project, I had to go to a $35 million referendum. We could not have done that on our own. We could have did little bits and pieces here and there on it, but we could have never done a comprehensive rebuilding of the school in this fashion. So that's not really a fair assessment of, the board the board being in a position where it's necessary for them to carry the cost of all renovation work and maintenance of it. The physical plant in Newington, I believe, is $400 million in value, 500 million, some big number like that. And if you just think you have a 50-year life of buildings and you got $500 million here, you need $5 million a year to reinvest in the buildings to make sure you keep them up to speed. Now, we are able to do some of that through the maintenance and custodial staffs of the building, but we don't have the $2 or $3 million to really take on big stuff that's here. So, and on the other part with the timing, I really didn't understand the question as it was posed here on the timing cycle. Everything is driven statutorily as far as when we have to get things done, either through the state statutes or what's in the town charter for when the budget cycle has to occur. And we all have to work within those, arrangements. We don't get to set an alternate cycle for ourselves.
And that would be equal or parallel to the contract negotiation cycle. That's statutorily, mandated on when that has to occur.
Right.
Generally is August through November, October, I think, and then November could be the final part. So that's right. And so that's something we have to adhere to that timeframe.
And it's the fiscal year starts July 1st. So the negotiations happen and then on July 1st is when the new contracts take effect. So that's what we budget for is the July 1st
Correct.
fiscal year. Yeah, not calendar year.
There was another question about our grants 3-year look back. I think it will illustrate how things, well, there was a couple questions. One is, what are some grants that are awarded but go straight to the town? And we only found 3 that have any substance, and that's adult ed. That goes directly to the town, and it's pretty stable at about 57. Oh, my goodness. So you look at this gives you a 4-year look back. Adult ed has ranged back 4 years ago, about 47,000 a year, all the way up to 50. Let's see if that can go. Of course not. 57. So that's a grant that kind of goes straight to the town. That's just how the grant is written and has to be, that's the way it goes. Similarly, the education cost sharing grant goes straight to the town. This year, you see the 4-year history, it's ranged from about 13.7 million all the way to about 15.3 million. We were at the Capitol today and I testified last week asking for the governor to restore the increase that Newington is supposed to get next year of 1.9 million. Right now, that increase has been reduced to about 1.4 million. While we don't see that money, it does impact the town's budget. So we keep an eye on it because we believe it can impact how they are able, or what their ability is, or their resources to pay for budget increases. And then there's a non-public health services grant that goes straight to the town, and that's looks pretty flat funded for all these years at about $5,000, $5,800. So again, we don't see those monies. Those go straight to the town for their discretionary use. Where you'll see some big changes, however, are the grant offsets over the last 4 years due to, obviously, the pandemic created an influx of resources into the grant. So going back to the 4 years ago, we saw the Coronavirus Relief Fund. There's a big $1 million grant in there, and ESSER school emergency money. Anyway, you can read that. I won't read it to you, but the total for grants 4 years ago was about $3.9 million. And you can look at the totals going forward. We had 5.3 the year after that. and then 6.4 the year after that. And then this year, we're estimating about 5.63. So you can see already from last year to this year, we've lost almost $1 million of grant dollars, mostly attributable to the ESSER dollars going away or sunsetting. And next year, we are going to lose all but $400,000 of the, we were able to retain about $400,000 of the ESSER money. So this year, I think it's the ARP ESSER money. It's further up. We have ARP, mental health, that's going to repeat. The ARP ESSER money is the big ticket item there. It's about almost $1.1 million this year. Next year, that goes down to $400,000. The ARP mental health, and that's what Christina presented about tonight, that will repeat itself for 2 more years. That dual credit, that's only a 1-year grant to my understanding. And the rest of these grants are pretty standard grants. We do have the Educators Rising grant that Mr. Farisi oversees. That's, I believe, just for this year, Mr. Farisi. And IDEA, those are repeating grants. Open Choice is repeating. Excess cost repeats, but not always fully funded. But the real story under this line is that substantial drop off of ARP ESSER grants over the past several years, where they go down to $400,000 next year, and after that, 0. And we, some districts have spent all of their money. We were able to siphon off about $400,000 that we will apply to next year's budget.
Anastasia asked you to email this to the board, which I'm sure you can do.
Yes, it's actually linked in the presentation, and I can resend that out.
Do you have the total that so this last column is this current school year?
Current school year, yes.
Do you have the total that we're budgeting for or anticipating receiving?
For next year?
Yeah.
I believe I have that. And Lou, if you find it sooner, let me know. But I know it's in this slideshow. Yeah, I mean, right, it's in your budget books, but it's. All right.
2.4.
All right, so. So all grant offsets. Oops, share this tab. What is currently in our budget for next year relative to grant offsets is $2.4 million. That includes all the titles, IDEA, Open Choice, ARP ESSER, ARP Mental Health. What's not in that dollar amount is probably the excess cost.
Correct.
And that's another, how many million, Lou?
$1.5 million round
So-
numbers.
So that's why that seems a bit low. It does not include excess cost. So those two combined are comparable to those charts that were presented on that previous slide. Plus 1.4, Lou?
1.415 is.
Yep. 1.4
moving
is a
target,
good estimate depending on what the state
So
does.
about 1.67 less than last year.
Previous year. That is correct.
And that means that's 2.67 less than 2 years ago. Like we've gone down 2 years.
If that's what you're adding up, it seems that we have absolutely dropped, because if we know we're only going to be at 1.4 and 2.4 is 3.8.
Okay, so
And last year we were
5.6.
5.6. So yeah, that's a substantial drop in grant resources.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions?
Mr. Sharma.
Maureen, just a quick question. The 15 million that the town basically got from the state, right?
That's the
Right.
the ECS, or the Education Cost Sharing Grant.
So basically that's money for education that was given to the town, right?
In theory, that is what it is for, yes.
So if our ask is 88 million, would it be right? I mean, town already got 15 million, right, from the state,
You could argue that that is true.
right? Because,
What it would probably look like in their budget is like an offset, much like we use our grants for offsets. But I've talked to some colleagues where their budget reflects, the board's budget reflects the ECS money. I don't know how common that is, but here it's always been on the town side, which is perfectly their right to do.
And is that statute, the way it's written?
It's
that money
statute
has
that
to
the
go to
ECS money goes to the
the
towns. I don't know that all legislators or even the governor realize that, but it does go right to the town.
Okay.
And then they're able to allocate it as they see fit.
Yeah, so what they got is about 15.4 million, right? 15 point,
That was last year. Again, it's slated to go up I would say anywhere between 1.4 million and 1.9 million, depending on what happens with the budget process this year. But as we all know, the legislation is churning away till at least May or so. So that won't necessarily be
So, like-
something we know.
like, so rough estimate would be about 17, close to like 17 million.
That's about right, yes.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, I'll move along. And I want to, before I go on, thank Mr. Freese and Mr. Jacomowitz and Wendy for their work on many of these charts that I am showing this evening. So I may ask some of them to speak to them so that they can provide some context. But we were asked by the board to describe or outline our expenditures relative to professional development, and Mr. Freese extrapolated this report.
So I created the tiniest report I could.
Get
Here
your
it
head-
is. No, I just, so the question was to provide a detail of certified staff in the professional learning that's been provided for this school year. And so that's what this detailed report shows. I will just share with you a little bit about our professional learning system. There are kind of two opportunities that folks have when we record professional learning in the system that we have, and that would be in-district professional learning or out-of-district professional learning. Generally, there would be finances associated with professional learning that occurs outside of the district. There's minimal financing for that which occurs within the district unless we bring someone in and we're paying a contracted rate for that, or if we have some of our own staff provide the professional learning. If it's during the school day, they still get compensated for their planning time for that professional learning. And if it's outside of the work day and they're providing professional learning, they also get additional funding for that. So what you will see are the activity titles, the schools, where it's happening, who's going to it, whether it's in or outside. But if you were to go a little bit over to the right, you'll see the expense column. In the system, when folks are going to do an out-of-district professional learning, they request what they anticipate the costs will be. So they have to kind of put together a report of what it would be. For example, that can include the conference fee, travel expenses potentially, if there are accommodations, if it's a multi, day workshop that's out of state, they would have to stay in a hotel over that time frame. So all of those expenses would be requested. And then sometimes you'll notice in the far right column that sometimes the request is paid exactly because everything came out exactly as they requested and anticipated, or sometimes there's a little bit less because maybe they didn't submit as many receipts because what they anticipated didn't come true, or maybe we pay out a little bit more because it was a little bit more for that, travel experience or the conference fee or what have you. So those don't always line up, but what I will tell you is the final expense total, if you go all the way to the bottom, does represent what we spend in our budget annually. I know in the professional learning account, we've generally requested $80,000. And you'll see that the requested amount already to date this year is $95,000. And we've already expended $84,827.50. What I will tell you is I am not overspending the amount that the Board of Education has given to me. I thought about that carefully before this presentation. But as Dr. Brummett shared with you, I do oversee, and Wendy Krause oversees a couple of grants. And those grants have built into them that we have to use certain amount of money for professional learning. So Mrs. Krause and I do work together and collaboratively, and we support our staff's professional learning through those grant funds. Generally Title Grant and generally the Open Choice Chef Grant.
Ms. Weaver.
Okay, because just curious because we appropriated 60,000 last year, and then the request is again 80,000. So just looking at like if we appropriated that,
Correct. So,
could you work with that?
uh, well, it depends,
Okay.
right? I can't give you a yes or no. It depends. It depends on all of our professional learning. We align directly to our mission and goals. And so we want to ensure that our staff is fully supported in being able to achieve that. Our leaders, our teachers, everyone involved, our support staff. And I know our efforts are ones that sometimes require expertise that is outside of the organization. Although we do tap into the expertise within quite a bit, we do use resources outside of that. That's generally when we have to contract out, and that's what we use our grant funding for. So it's when things go beyond that, and lately, our learning has required that a little bit beyond. So we will always work with what we are given to the very best of our ability.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I just have one more question. Is the 84,000 just year to date? So you expect more towards the end of for the rest of the year?
So correct, it's year to date. Dr. Brummett has put a budget freeze out there right now. So we have kind of been saying no to all professional learning that would come out of operational budgets if we don't have grant funding to support it. So at this time, we are saying no to all professional learning that's coming through our office.
And how much of that, do you have a number of how much of that is grant funded versus?
I don't have that in this report.
Okay, thanks.
So our next question that was posed last week was, what are the typical or historical salary step placements over the last 4 years? I believe that discussion was born from the increasing costs of salaries and the fact that there are teacher shortages, and that sometimes means there's a higher initial payment for incoming teachers. So I'll turn this over to Mr. Farisi again.
So we did a 4-year look back, and what the upper chart represents and the graphic also shows is just from 2020 all the way to 2023, what the average starting salary has been, and then the percentage change or increase that's occurred based on that annually. Step 1 of a BA in the contracted salary are those amounts that are in the third column. And then that would be the difference, and you can see how the difference keeps growing year by year as well, as you would expect as the increases are growing. And then I just did a minimum and a maximum of each year of what we had hired staff at. So as you go down and begin to take a look at the staff that have been hired during those years. So Dr. Brummett, if you could scroll down, please. You'll just see the staff that have been hired, what their positions are, their hire date, and where they're located, and the salary that we're hiring at. And then the upper chart just shows the impact of that. As you go to the very bottom, I thought it might be beneficial for the board, if you continue on, to just see, because the second part of the question was what step are we seeing that most folks are hired on? So this is an analysis, a step breakdown over those years as well. So over those 4 years, what you'll notice is that you'll have the most in step 14 MA, as well as step 1 across the board. If you look at the totals all the way across to the right, you'll see 11 in step 1, but you'll see 12 at the highest step. And then you see a number in between, right? So I think what it tells us is that generally certain positions, we know that are coming in a shortage area. And we're generally getting folks who are either leaving other districts or want to move around or get a new experience. So they're coming to us with experience, and that's what this chart represents. And those are the steps that we're hiring on. So I just thought this would be a good representation of showing an answer to that response to the questions of what steps are folks being hired on.
Thank you.
We also had a question about certified staff salaries. And I believe, Steve, did you prepare this as well?
I did. I think I've got a couple more.
I kept you busy over the past few days getting all
Been a
this stuff
wonderful
together.
weekend, Dr. Brummett. I appreciated the opportunity.
But
Me too.
it's all, yes, Lou, you probably were right up there with Steve.
So I believe this question was just literally wanted a detail of certified staff salaries. And so this is what that report shows, just a detail of those salaries. Certified staff include our certified teachers and our certified administrators. So that's what this chart represents. And you'll see our certified teachers represented by educator, and then our administrators represented by administrator as you keep going down. It literally was just a request for this detail. There was no analysis requested, so I didn't. There's no
linked.
fun charts at the end.
I think
I just don't want you to
I'm
think
sorry.
there's like a pot of gold at the end.
No,
of
I
this
think
one.
I was asking for the percentage of our budget, like what staff salaries are. We can do that.
That was another question.
Okay, that's
as well.
separate.
I think Lou was working on that. That was a separate question.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you both.
Yeah.
All right. That's that very detailed answer. All right, now we are back to questions. Not sure, I can't recall the context of this question, but there was an inquiry about our homebound students. So Mr. Farisi, I presume.
Yes.
Put this together.
So the inquiry was simply, about how many hours of homebound instruction.
Oops. I must have.
2 weeks, or, have we had provided to students?
It's coming. I clicked on the wrong link. There's a lot of links on that page.
This chart might be a little.
Oh yeah, I'll blow it up.
Blow it up a little too. It's a very simple chart, but so I just went and did a couple year look back. And you'll see the hours that we've provided in 21-22, 2,500, 2,510, and last year. And right now, to date, as of February 15th, it was 1,366 hours. If you project that out for the rest of the year with the number of days left after the 15th of school, pending no more snow days, but they would just bump over, but it's about 2,300 more hours projected. And so that was the inquiry, just around how many hours. What I would tell you is there are multiple factors when it comes to homebound, and that's kind of what the note shows, that it varies year to year, depending on what the needs are. The cost also varies depending on whether it's a certified staff instructing the student, or if it's a paraeducator or learning tutor instructing the student. That matters of the cost. And I would like to just note to the board that the most recent contract that we've negotiated with the teachers union, that the increase in homebound will go from $40 to $55. And then it would actually go to $75. That's just for working with one student, $75 for working with two students, and $85 for working with three students. And then there is a homebound chair for $55 an hour as well. So the costs associated with it will go up, and that's what is represented in your budget book. The increase, I think, of $100 to $147,000 or $42,000 from maybe 126, I think, around. So that would be representative of taking all that into consideration, and that's why we're requesting that amount in the homebound area.
Question, Steve.
Yes.
You're projecting a total.
Can you turn your mic on?
Sorry. You're projecting a total with the 2,300 with the 1,366, right? That's 2,300 additional hours, or is that okay?
That's correct. That's in addition to the 1,366. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. The next,
My apologies. No, I'm sorry. That is
The
for the
total.
full year, this year, for the full year. I do want to share that we did open up that we are piloting right now, the alternative academy, the Nor'easter Academy of Excellence, which is a phenomenal program that does divert some of the homebound instruction funds over to that program. So that's why you see a reduction here in our projection for a total of about 200 hours less than what we would expect for normal homebound.
And we have
Thank you.
less expulsions.
That's right.
this year than did
And I think
last
I put
year.
that in the note too. So thank you so much.
all right, as we already referenced in an earlier discussion this evening, Lou did analyze and extrapolate from the databases our historical increases from year to year, starting with 1993. And so the far right-hand column is the percentage increase. The far left, well, you've got the year, the total budget, and the percentage increase for that particular year. So you can, I'll just scroll down. It's ranges from year to year, obviously. But what Lou was able to extrapolate, bottom line is that our average for the time frame of this chart, which is how many years, Lou?
Well, that number you have the cursor on right now is just the last 10 years,
The last 10 years, okay.
2.08%.
So over the last 10 years, our average increases is 2.08. So that is, certainly a lower average. And he included the current ask for this year, but that's not part of the average yet since it's not approved. All right, so that's our history. All righty, any questions on that or anything for the board chair?
Mr. Newton?
Dr. Brumman, these are all available, right? So we can get them and read them again?
Yes, I will resend out this presentation, and every chart that I'm showing this evening is linked. So you'll be able to examine that on your own and follow up with any questions. You got it. All right. Where are we now? Dues and memberships. That was another area that the board wanted to get a little more clarification on. And what Lou has extrapolated, or maybe Karen did, from our various line items is a laundry list of dues that we pay for a variety of memberships. I won't go into all the details, but something like DECA is something is directly related to student activities at the high school. And some of these are organizations that various members of the district belong to. CASBO is something that Lou belongs to, and I'm not exactly sure about COSIN, the Consortium for School Networking. Does anyone know what that is exactly?
That is
So it's just ed tech, thank you. And then you can see by department, we've got numerous honor society and clubs, organizations for world language teachers. We've got numerous organizations for band directors, music educators. It runs the gamut here. We've got jazz festival fees that fall under this, a lot of band associations, Cyber Patriot entry fees, Invention Convention. Social Studies has a few of their own organizations, Special Ed. Concase is a very valuable organization for special ed. All these are very valuable. School Counseling has a number of organizations, nurses. So the list goes on. Pretty much all of our departments have different organizations that provide them with training, resources, library media specialists. Board of Ed belongs to several organizations. One that may be catching your eye is CABE. That is a fairly expensive organization at $22,500 a year. In fact, it's the most expensive dues on this page. And we did an audit before the budget was submitted to the board, and some have already been pulled out. But for the ones that remain, this is what you're seeing. One that caught my eye that I believe we could probably discontinue is the District Management Council. That is something that, right now, for that price tag, we get one conference a year and a fair amount of resources, but I think I would be comfortable removing that. And that's one that I access, so I'm comfortable saying that. But I believe with a fine tooth comb, we do really leverage and utilize all of these resources. You'll note that the Anti-Defamation League names program has gone up a bit, but that's because we've added some of their programs both to the middle level and increased some programs at the high school. And I think that's a valuable expenditure.
Yes, only 6,000.
That's the total.
Right, it's the total of, Lou, could you clarify that as we reviewed this earlier this evening, that those right, column D, does that represent like a subtotal?
Total for the program. So
Okay.
You can see the yellow highlighted item is the last line of building direction. So
Okay,
all the building direction ones in total.
I see, subtotal for the section. Very good.
Yeah. So I think the ones that are student facing, we definitely should keep, but I think the board, we can consider, obviously the one that you said, the District Management Council, but also possibly CABE. Cause we do access CABE services and there's conferences that we might attend at least one a year. And, I think Jessica, you said our policy manual is housed in CABE.
Yeah, it's technically housed in CABE, but I don't think it has to be housed in CABE. We can work, I mean, mostly we were using Shipman and Goodman for policy recommendations.
We're
I mean, we just-
gravitating more toward them, yes.
We wouldn't get a fancy plaque or anything like that, but I think that's quite all right.
So, so we can discuss it later, but I
Yes.
think that would be something that we can, look at cutting. So that would total $27,000 out of
that.
out of the
Groupings.
memberships. Yep.
Okay. And again, we had already sliced a few others out. All right, and then on the one last item on this slide was adding maintenance. There was a discussion last week about whether we should just add another journeyman or our technician rather than using contracted services. Lou and I met earlier today and we analyzed it, and Lou probably analyzed it far more than me, and there really isn't a good argument for that because there would be times when they would not have much to do, and then we'd be spending money for a salary, and a very expensive person might be sweeping things. So the recommendation would be to not do that at this time, though I think it's important to obviously always look at these things. All right. On the next slide, special education budget details. I think we have spent quite a bit of time on that, but just to summarize some of the broader categories, and some of those were referenced on an earlier slide when we talked about magnet tuitions as well as outplacements. Lou extrapolated this year's data and next year's projected budget needs for, it's just a compilation of salaries, non-certified, which we know is paraprofessionals, as well as some other non-certified RBTs, administrative salaries. What's included, Lou, in other salaries?
The other salaries are non-certified full-time employees. It would be whatever secretarial folks that are supporting the program.
Special ed, okay.
The BCBAs, the RBTs. No,
Gotcha.
RBTs we have in 112 was direct. But, the BCBAs in general support help across the program.
So total salaries for special ed in district staff is about 8.2 million. The field trips are largely for our transition academy because our other students go on field trips with all the other classmates. They don't have their separate field trips. We need to use translators on occasion for PPT meetings and or sign language interpreters for parents who may be hearing impaired. Professional services, and that gets into, is that consultants and some outside evaluations, Lou?
Mhm.
Okay. And we did look at, and Lou, not to put you on the spot, we talked about are we at the point now with the number of hearing impaired students in the district, right at now totaling 14 children, to hiring and teaching of the hearing impaired? We're budgeting 160 next year. If we were to hire a teacher of the hearing impaired with benefits, where would that land approximately?
We'd be at a break even or a little bit better.
Okay.
You know, the paying top of scale for an individual, say it's $110,000 and a $25,000 benefit package, $30,000 budget package, takes you up to the, around that 140 number that you have. But instead of having essentially a combination of a 0.2 employee paying huge money for her that's only working in selective arrangements, you have a 1.0 that can facilitate the whole program and assist the SLP staff with hearing impaired issues across the whole.
And they might be able to pick up a few other students on their caseload, perhaps. So there may be some fiscal advantages to that. I don't know if it would allow us to cut the budget by $10,000 or something along that line, but the only caution would be those are a very rare person to find.
Just a question, would that teacher, so currently are we hiring one single person on a contract basis? Or would that teacher, like, if we did go that route where we hire just a full-time teacher, would they be able to cover all the students in district? Like, they're not all the same school?
No, they'd be itinerant. They'd have to go to multiple schools.
8 and 10 cases that have teacher assistants in the hearing impaired area. It is not just one person that travels around. It's a combination of 3 or 4 different individuals coming from different sources. So it's, you know, you don't have that continuity available. And I'm coming to John Wallace tomorrow. I'm there all day. I'm here for an hour. I move on to the next assignment.
So just want to, is it feasible to hire one teacher of the hearing impaired to accommodate all our students, or do we have to go the route of contracted?
I think it would, given my special ed background, I think it'd be very reasonable for one teacher of the hearing impaired to cover 14 kids. But again, it would be a traveling position because they're not all housed at one school. But they probably could spend 1 day per week at the schools where the children are mostly located. They'd be workable.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Carr?
So currently we're contracting that teacher at $3.80 an hour, was it?
It was a pretty substantial amount. I don't have it right in front of me, Lou. The cost for the hearing impaired teacher per hour, it was a pretty significant number.
Oh, it's at least $100 to $150 an hour.
I thought it was even higher than that.
2 meetings ago, I wrote it was $3.80 an hour.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, because they're typically at the highest step because they're so rare. They typically garner a top step. So, I mean, it sounds like if we could find someone, it would be a slightly fiscal advantage, not to mention having that person 100% with us versus in and out from different organizations. So but whether that impacts budget deliberations is probably at a minimal amount, maybe $10,000. But everything else on this chart really, again, kind of itemizes the impact of some of our special ed costs. Here's that total again of what we're spending in magnet school special ed costs. We've put a dollar sign on 504 plans and services. It's something that we don't normally track, but we're comfortable that about 40,000 a year is a fair number because we get no reimbursement for that. There's no money from the state for that. Our out-of-district placements cost about 5.7 million, but as you can see, Lou has calculated our anticipated excess cost next year about 1.5, close to 1.6 million, serving about 41 students. And then we have our ESS program that works at the high school and the 2 middle schools for our students with mental health challenges. That's all part of this budget. There's also line items for outside evaluations and other professional services. So the grand total, I don't know if this, yep, there it is. Total contracted services is 1.48 million. I don't know if we have a grand total at the very, very bottom. I'll keep going. Wait for it.
Right
Oh
there.
my.
You passed it, 14 million.
14 million.
Yep, right there.
So our special ed expenditures account for about 22% of our budget. So that's a pretty substantial chunk. All right. mill rate summary. So I'll kick this off and then I'm going to have Lou speak to it if I can get it to pop up. Sure, now we're going to freeze. It's like in frozen space. All right. So Lou has extrapolated or gotten information from the town about their mill rate. It's important to realize that this is not anything the board has control over. It's something that the town oversees. But what I'll let Lou explain any implications it might have for the board's budget or how we compare the board's budget with the mill rate in mind. So Lou, I'm going to kick it to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is actually a combination of two of the requests that were out there. There was also a request regarding the profile of salaries as far as, where we were spending it. So it dovetailed perfectly with answering the question about the mill rate. So the bottom chart presents the salary component of that, which ties back to the mill rate number. So I'll walk everybody through it. So the upper chart is just the history of the last 5 years of the town's mill rate as adopted by the town council in the budget process. You can see in the 1920 year, the mill rate was 39.45 and the value of 1 mill was just about $2.6 million. Okay. Over the next 4 years, there was a mill rate decrease each of those 4 years. It wasn't dramatic, but it was, managing the mill rate, any decrease is a good arrangement for the community. So, but you do see that the number bounces around a little bit as far as how much a mill is worth. So that speaks to the growth or contraction of the grand list of the town. So you can see in the most recent year, 2,493,000, it's down a little bit from 4 years ago. So it shows a little bit of contraction in the grand list. I have no idea what this year's number is going to show. Everything that we've heard so far is it's going to be positive on the grand list, but I don't have any numbers to share in that regard.
We're not in the evaluation, right?
I don't think so. Yeah. Right. Okay. So that just gives you a framework of, the value of how much a mill is. So if we know that 1 mill costs $2.5 million, that becomes the benchmark to look at the salary accounts and determine where we're at. So you can see this is the breakdown, first of our bargaining units, core employee groups in the district. So you can see that of the 5 subsets we have there, we're going from 48.8 million up to 50,300,000. So that grouping of employees, requires $1.5 million to service all their contracts and address that, which is a 3.08% increase on the base salary of just that group. That's not with respect to the overall budget. That's just 3.08% of the 48.8 that's here. Then you'll see we have the non-union groups. We have the unaffiliated AT group, which we have 25 employees of that category working throughout the district. Then we have our 150 or so paraprofessionals and tutors that work around the district that are, our biggest concern area these days because of the lack of the competitive compensation and benefit arrangements that are there. And then we have all of the other staff members in the district, which includes a number of security guards, the volunteer coordinators, cafeteria aides, summer help. There's a long list of individuals that are in there, along with substitute teachers and that group. So there's probably 20 different employee groups within that number. So you can see when, oh, you went a little too fast for me, Dr. Rahman. Can you back up? So the non-union group, 9.0 to 9.6. And, that segment is 6%. And then I have it listed as gross salaries because grants in the non-lapsing fund, I wouldn't call it distorting it, but it materially changes the perception of what the numbers are. So this is the commitments you have to the individual employees that in total needs a little bit over $2 million to satisfy that contract on that basis. Then we know that our grant offsets are diminishing by $550,000, and we're adding to our dependency on the non-lapsing fund for next year for $225,000. So, it's an additional commitment we have to pay to just keep the ship floating. So we're up to $2,373,000 in net salaries, 4.47% growth from that perspective. And it gives you the context of the whole budget. And then you had the question also is what's the percentage of salaries to the total budget? So, we're at 70.4 on the gross and 67.5 and then the mid 60s. I did not have the chance to go back to further years, but I know that those numbers are higher than they have been as a percentage of the total budget. We're in the lower to mid 60s, for the last few years before this, but I just didn't have I didn't finish this till like 6:45.
So Lou, just the short summary is salaries make up 67.5% of our budget.
Correct.
And then we just mentioned special ed is about 22%. Okay.
And then you have the benefits. Those are your three core
Drivers
items that are here. So the question was, well, what's the impact compared to the mill rate? So if we know the mill rates, one mill is worth $2.5 million, we need about $2.4 million to service the salary plan as it's currently constructed. So the breakout was about 0.6 for the bargaining units and 0.35 for all the others. So now hopefully that addresses the question as asked.
Yes, thank you.
Just the tricky part is, and I'll switch it over to the board chair for questions, is we don't know what the grand list is, so that would impact the mill rate. Is that a fair statement?
Right. If
We
the
just don't
grand
know
list
at this
goes up
time.
10% and they don't increase the budget, there's a big mill rate decrease that occurs as a result of that.
I see.
So
Okay.
it's all,
Again, those are all interactions on the town side, but I know the board was curious, what does our budget impact the mill rate? Potentially, but without knowing the grand list, that we can't definitively answer that.
Mr. Sharma.
Lou, just a quick question. So just to recap, the 2.3 million in wage increases, basically that's what the
There's
town needs, the town would need in new revenues just to keep up, right? Because the wages are gonna go up because of contracts.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to highlight. So we need 2.3 million. Basically, our tax revenue, grand list should go up by that, right? If it does not, then there's a hole.
right. And then you also have like the ECS revenues coming in, which will be 1.4 to 1.9, which helps subsidize whatever that is.
Right. Okay, yeah, so, doing a zero budget is like, you still have this increase that's gonna, because of the contract, salaries are gonna go up, but if you don't, if you don't fund and if you don't, the grant list doesn't go up. So basically it's a whole, right? So, thanks.
Go ahead, speaker. Could you just scroll back up, Dr. Bromett? Sorry, I just wanted to, the reason I was asking this kind of question of just percentage wise is I'm just curious too. So thank you, Lou, for kind of highlighting too. We're spending, or roughly about the same if we more on staff, less on programming. Kind of the majority of our budget is going to people. And I think that's an important thing to highlight. Like we're not spending the majority on these random books or anything like, not that they're not important, but I think that is a powerful statement just to look at those numbers and say the majority by a good percentage is salaries. And that is, we talk about, I think the increasing costs and all these budget drivers, but the core of the budget, so to speak, is salaries as people. And I think, that's just one of the things that I think is important for us to consider, is that of that, we're looking at, I appreciate too the net versus gross salary of what we're using the grants for in those salaries. But I think it is a very large bulk of what we're looking at. And then outside of that, it's like we have all these external drivers that are not helping us, one, offset these things, two, the non-lapsing fund. So I just wanted to point out too, our reliance on it, that would get us to zero in the non-lapsing next year too. So that's
It would. It will.
1.9 million we wouldn't have next year to offset salaries. Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you.
All righty, back to our list. So the non-lapsing fund impact was another question the board had, and right now, we will leverage about $1.9 million in next year's budget in non-lapsing dollars. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lou, that's about a 2%, or is that 2.5%?
Close to 2.5.
Yeah. So what we're using in the non-lapsing money this year equates to 2.5% of our increase. And we're using it as an offset. Otherwise, the budget would be that much higher. Next year, that would essentially create a hole when the non-lapsing money likely will be depleted next year, as projected in this current snapshot in time. Okay?
Sorry, Maureen, can you go back to the mill rate one?
Sure. Hopefully that's right over here.
I think it was 4 point something percentage was the increase for the salaries. I was just, okay, net salaries, the offset.
Yes.
4.47 increase.
So I believe each
Yeah.
column is with the impact of non-lapsing and maybe some grant money.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the last column on the right. So it's net salaries. This is with grants. It would be a 4.47 increase just on salaries.
Yes.
Okay. Of just the salary line, that was what you're saying. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah, and we've talked about before with the non-lapsing fund that we've had to rely on it the last few budget cycles. So we're coming to the point where there is no more non-lapsing funds to be reliant on. So this year, we're not asking for what, 7, 8,
It'd be
10.5.
Close to 10%, yeah.
We're not asking for 10-ish. We're asking for 7.99, maybe less. We don't know. But next year we're going to have this hole again, just like we have the hole this year from last year's reliance on non-lapsing. So we're just kind of kicking the can, and we're going to come up empty in our piggy bank.
So on that positive note, I'd like Wendy to be able to speak to the conundrum we're facing this year with schools changing designation rather relative to title, and that impact on the allocations, which many of our speakers voiced concerned about tonight.
Thank you for being so patient.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so you might wonder, why are we talking about title when what was mentioned is the ESSER grant? And the reason is that to get a full picture of what's happening, you really have to understand how our title grants work. So I'm going to use an example that might make it a little easier to grasp the concepts. So I'll just take elementary math and understand that we have, currently we have 4 Title I schools this year, but that is because we grandfathered one in. Title grants are entitlement grants, but they are determined by the percentage of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch in each school. We have for years had Kellogg, Green, and Reynolds as title schools. And this year Reynolds did not qualify. We were able to grandfather them in for 1 year. They allow that for 1 year only in case it's a fluke or it's just like on the edge. But we already know, because it's based on October 1 enrollment, that they do not qualify again next year. So we are not able to grandfather them in another year. So what's been happening is Patterson's percentage has been rising dramatically when compared to some of the other schools. So next year it will be Patterson, Green, and Kellogg, who are the Title I schools. So what does that have to do with these decisions? So if you think about those, next year it'll be 3 schools, and you'll see in your budget books where we're using the Title I money is for reading and math interventionists in those 3 schools. So let's just take elementary math as an example. Years ago, the operating budget included 2 math interventionists at the elementary level, and they were split evenly across the 4 schools. Then when our Title I money went up, we decided to use that funding to fund
an additional math interventionist for the 2 Title I schools. So that meant that at the time it was Reynolds and Green had a full-time math interventionist. Chafee and Patterson split a math interventionist. That happened all the way up until COVID hit. Then came along the ESSER grant. And while the ESSER grant had many different criteria, one of them was around accelerated learning. So we were able to use some of those funds for increased intervention across the district. And that grant did not require that it be a Title I school. You could use it in any school, accelerating learning due to the impact of COVID. So knowing that that grant is now going away, that we knew it was only 3 years, now we are back to pre-COVID decision-making where we have to fund everybody out of the operating budget as if you would, regardless of Title I. And then the schools that receive Title I services get something in addition to. So that's called the supplement versus supplant. Really important. So you can't decide to increase funding in a non-Title I school to make it equal to a Title I school. You have to, in the operating budget, fund them equally. And then the Title I funds are used for additional services to the Title I school. Does that make sense? So now back to my example. While we did increase math interventionists at the elementary level with the ESSER funds, we don't have that now. So we're back to 3. So go back to the beginning of my story. What has changed is that Reynolds is no longer a Title I school. So that's why it's making a difference more in that building right now. But it's not new to us at the elementary level that a math interventionist gets split between 2 schools. It was just 2 different schools prior to COVID. So that would lead to, in this decision making, if you wanted to increase funding in one school for that math interventionist, you have to do that equally across all 4 schools. And then we would fund the 2 title schools in addition to that. So just for math interventionists at the elementary level, if you wanted to keep everybody where they are right now, you would need to fund 2 full positions in the operating budget. 2 more. And that's just elementary math. If you bring in elementary reading, middle school math, and middle school reading and apply that same decision making, I did some rough estimates when I was listening earlier, and that would come to 6.2 positions that you would need to fund in the operating budget.
So approximately $650,000.
Yeah.
So it's extremely complex because of the 2 worlds colliding. ESSER going away, designation of title schools changing, and our requirements to meet those standards about funding title schools or staffing title schools at a higher rate than the rest of the
Yeah,
district.
supplementing, not supplanting.
Right. Those are the dilemmas that we faced when making these decisions.
I will go on record to say that Steve and I have spent a lot of time together in the last few months on this, looking at every scenario possible to try to make things work with the pieces. Because the other thing that we have to look at, especially Steve, from a staffing standpoint, is what makes sense too. Like you can't just add on a 0.2 anywhere. It has to be like, how is that going to work with all the pieces? So we did a lot of puzzling around with making sure we could make things work with the changes.
And I think, to be clear, we would like all schools to have as much intervention services as they can have. There's no question or doubt about that. What we're faced with is how to do that without, now you're adding 7 positions, that's $700,000 or thereabouts.
Right, and that is what's happened. Is it's not that one school has a lesser need. So,
No,
so
it's not
it's not
that.
like you're saying Reynolds doesn't have the need and therefore take it away. They still have the need. It's just another school has a bigger need. So unless we can increase funding for it overall, we're in a bind.
Go ahead. So I was talking to a few teachers in the Valley because they have interventionists, and my sister, when she was finishing her master's at UConn, she was a math interventionist for Naugatuck. Is there a way we can get, I know there's certified or not certified, and then there's hourly or contract, in order to get the interventionists we need? Isn't there a way we can do them as salary pay, or not salary pay, hourly pay instead of salary? And the certification versus not, because I think just getting any help in there would be beneficial.
I don't know if you want to respond. I think what you'd be referring more to like a learning tutor position when you talk hourly versus a certified position, which would be salaried, because otherwise you'd be hiring two people to do the same job and then saying to one of them, we're going to pay you as a certified teacher on a salary, and the other one is an hourly, but they'd be doing the same job. So unless it were a learning tutor position supporting in a different way.
Right, so some other districts, we use the term learning tutor for folks who might have a certification but aren't using that to get a contracted position. We struggle to find individuals like that as of late, and that's been shown in our reports that we keep sharing with the board. So some other districts call it a paraeducator general education versus a paraeducator special education. And those folks were also struggling to acquire as well. So we've been going outside and using the contracted services for that. And that's equating to almost $60 to $70 an hour, which when you kind of weigh it all out, sometimes is equivalent to or closer to what a contracted person would be. We continuously try to get the support, and we will. Those are just some of the struggles that we have trying to do it right now.
Thank you. And this is interesting. So it's based off of the Title I just inherently has to be higher. So it's based off of ratios of other schools that they then have to be higher for Title I.
If I'm understanding your question, yes. So you have to look at all of your schools,
Yeah.
what the percentage of students who qualify for free and reduced
Yeah.
lunch based on the district free and reduced lunch
Okay.
percentage. So the schools that are higher than the district average are Title I.
Title I. So, and this is all based on October 1 enrollment.
Correct.
On that day. And say, was it Kellogg that like, it could move during the year, but it's on that day. So I guess my question is, if October 1 Anne Reynolds went back to Title I, would
It's
they
based on October 1 that already passed.
pass? Okay.
Title is always runs a year in
Year
arrears.
in-
So,
okay.
so that's why we know it already, is because we've already
Okay.
run the October 1, 2023 numbers.
Right. Okay. So, and just to, I'm reemphasizing this just because it's a hard analogy. So like, if we all had, 1, 1, 1, Patterson would need to have 1.5.
Yes, they'd have to, whatever we're paying out of the title grant would have to be in addition to
To.
whatever we decided. And by the way, the other thing that has shifted in the district over the past decade is that our schools used to be more similar in size, and now we have two larger schools and two smaller schools. So we take that into account when we even assign out of the operating budget.
Okay.
But if you said as in the operating budget, as an example, we want our larger schools to have 1.0 and our smaller schools to have 0.8,
Mhm.
we can only pay the additional out of Title I. It has to be above that for all 4 schools.
Okay. So to
Yeah.
to keep status quo, we would have to hire is it just the math or the reading too?
I broke it down, and remember, we have this same issue as at the middle level. So when you look
Okay.
at the elementary and middle for
Yeah.
math and reading,
Yeah.
it's 6.2 total. It's 2 elementary math, 1.2 elementary reading, 1 middle school math, and 2 middle school reading.
And these would be full-time benefits?
That would be 6.2 FTE, so that would be full-time benefits, yes.
Okay.
And I'll just throw this out there. What if we say the heck with the title regulations, we'll just leave staff the way they are? What is the risk?
If you leave staff the way they are, well, I'm not doing the Title I grant next year, but I personally would not sign off on it. If I were in charge of it, I would not sign my name to it, because I
So-
have to sign and assure to the state that I have made sure that that is not
Correct.
happening. So I would not put my name on.
So there is federal obligations to follow these rules as much as we don't necessarily agree with them.
And I'm
and
also
how
on
they're
TV
determined.
right now, so I'm going to say again, I will not sign my name to that.
And I wasn't suggesting that. My point was, we are beholden to
We are beholden,
rules that we might not necessarily like. And
there's reasons for it. And we're seeing bigger discrepancies in our schools and, you know, we range, there's a 10 percentage point different now. So that's significant. There's a reason for Title I. There's a reason that you're making sure that schools with a higher need are getting more than what other schools are getting.
We had been shown a chart of staffing numbers, and I'm pretty sure there's an update to it. Do you have the updated? Because
Yeah,
the,
that was reflecting old information. Yes, that was outdated.
because it showed there's two math interventionist positions that in Dr. Brummett's original presentation were funded this year by ESSER dollars or last year, well, this year. And next year, obviously that goes away. So the original chart that we were shown showed a decrease in Anna Reynolds and E-Green. I understand now it's Anna Reynolds and Chafee. But it doesn't, there's no like difference in the reading, or there's not even any language art interventionists.
Yeah, so
staffing numbers.
the error made in that chart was that there's a math interventionist and a reading interventionist in the ESSER grant, and they were both taken out of the math. We're really only taking one out of the math.
Okay.
So.
Sorry.
And one out of reading.
And one other reading. Yeah, so in the area of math that I think you're looking at it, Amy, the elementary would be 0.6 at Reynolds, 0.4 at Chafee, 1.0 at Green, 1.0 at Patterson.
And Wallace would have 1 and
Kellogg would have 2.
2.
Mm-hmm. Is it the chart you're referring to?
Okay. And then so I guess I'm just trying to understand if we wanted the elementary schools to have a full-time math interventionist, and I guess, well, first question, how many reading interventionists do we have at each school?
Out of the operating budget, it's 1.6 or 1.8, depending on the size of the school. And then we have additional in the Title I schools by 0.5.
Is the Title I, does the Title I grant specify it has to be a half a person additional, or like what's the difference? Just more?
Well, number one, it's based on the funding that they provide us. And so where you kind of get locked in is you have people that are behind those positions. So we don't change it every year. We try to keep it with the people that we have to keep them as stable as we can. Yeah, that's the
So that
updated
just
one, right?
shows, so that just shows the math, which is what we just said, the 0.6 at Reynolds and 0.4 at Chafee.
Is this the chart you're referring to?
That's from pre-COVID, I believe, right? That was the question I had asked.
1920.
Yeah, so I was curious of what the
So if
staffing
you-
levels were
So if
prior
you even
to.
just think about that chart that Dr. Brummett had up, up above that, the little one, right there.
Yeah.
So to the question of if you wanted to do something for elementary math, if you wanted to increase Reynolds to a 1.0, you've decided that school needs a 1.0, so you have to increase Patterson by a 0.4 as well. And then you're increasing Chafee to a 1.0, you've decided that Green should also be increased by a 0.6 in the operating budget, because you have to fund your schools equally out of the operating budget. You can't pay for somebody out of the Title I grant if you are doing the same thing in a non-Title I school out of the operating budget. That's supplanting.
So that's how you got to the number of we need 2 extra math, which would make Reynolds 1, Chafee 1, and E. Green and Patterson 1.5.
Correct.
And Wallace and Kellogg are okay, just as is.
They are not if you're applying this thinking, because Wallace also had increased math intervention, just like Chafee and Reynolds did. So they're going down a 0.5. So if you wanted to put them back up to a 0.5, you'd have to increase Kellogg by a 0.5. And so that's why I
So
got
it's
the
two and a
additional
half
one.
extra positions.
So that would
And
be
you can't
three,
have a
because
half
you'd
a
be
person.
increasing Wallace and Kellogg by 0.5 each.
Okay.
And that's just math, not including reading yet.
Yeah.
And then apply that same thinking to reading. That's where I was getting my total. So that's the other way you can go, is to say, we're going to do this for one level, not the other. Then you want a good statement behind that of why you're applying that to one area. Like
Early intervention.
early intervention. If you wanted to say, we think at the elementary level, we want more interventionists so we can intervene early. We're going to do this elementary and not middle.
That would be appropriate for Title I, or is that like questionable behavior?
The Title I requirement would be that you're applying your decision-making equally across all schools, regardless of their Title I status. You can't put the
elementary
Title I status. So if you're saying that as an elementary, this is how we're staffing our schools, that would be okay. You're staffing your middle schools differently.
So we could apply this to just elementary schools, not both.
Let's,
In total, would that be 4, 2 and 2, 2 math, 2 reading, 2?
That's actually a little bit less in reading, because we have less than full-time people right now. So you could increase reading by 1.2 at the elementary level.
And 2.0 for math to meet the standard. So 3.2 FTE should just focus on the math, which would add approximately 325,000 to the budget, give or take.
We'll do that, math.
Which is about a 0.5%-ish, a little less than 0.5%. Okay. So that's the mathematicals behind where we're currently at with title. So the impact that is discussed here this evening is more a function of title, though it's exacerbated by the ESSER fund reductions. So it's a kind of unfortunately a perfect storm, or in this case, an imperfect storm.
yeah, and there was a lot of, we had received a bunch of emails, which we definitely appreciate, hearing from the community. There's a lot of discussion on the new development on Cedar, which is Anna Reynolds, right? So, and it's affordable housing, which means that it's possible that they would qualify for free and reduced. So you mentioned that the title is based on last October 1st. So this October 1st, if that development is populated
Pans
with
out, yep.
students, then potentially Reynolds would qualify for title funding in the next year. So, yeah, so
That's right.
it's potentially a year or a
Out.
year too late for the for the housing, or yeah,
Right,
it's
so
not here yet.
if there is an influx to Reynolds that results in them requalifying as a title school, we're required to make that change the following fall. And then we'd have to readjust this entire juggle of positions to realign to whatever the new eligibility pieces are.
This is definitely a nuance that
Mhm.
I was not aware of.
And probably because it was very stable for a very long time. So it didn't come up a lot in the way that it has over the last few years with the shifts.
Interesting.
Okay. Just wanted to show the board again the breakdown of all the major budget drivers. That was another question that came up throughout the course of the budget presentations. This just shows the impact of all the salary increases, with them making up about 2.5% of the total budget. Okay. There was a request by the board to discuss the role of the Chief of Innovation Strategy and Culture for Equity. That's Dr. Hairston. He is integral in implementing our district goal and strategy relative to reducing the opportunity gap for marginalized and underrepresented students. And he is working with our central office team called the DELT, District Equity Leadership Team, to help schools develop routines around equity. So I won't do his role justice tonight, but some of the examples of the work he's done is he chairs our district equity leadership team that meets every Tuesday. He has developed and provided training for the administrative council. He oversees revisions to our district discipline practices, conducted an equity audit, my apologies. He chairs the district equity committee, and he supports the work of the NHS student panel, which you'll probably see a presentation of later this year. And he is chairing with me the Community and District Equity Council. This is by no means an exhaustive list of all his responsibilities, but essentially in the 3 years that he's been in the district, he has worked with us systemically to help us understand how do we close that opportunity gap. And it's not a quick and easy fix because it requires a lot of challenging work, challenging conversations. We work with him and he visits schools with us to look at how teams are operating, how classrooms are operating. He consults with teachers and administrators all the time. So I know that the board member that asked this question is not here this evening, but it'll be in the packet that folks can review. And again, this is like a smidgen of what Dr. Hairston does, but I wanted to be prepared tonight to at least discuss some of his job responsibilities. Okay. And then my final slide tonight relative to the budget is kind of a snapshot of where we are. We started off this process months back where the increase was about 11.10%. Throughout the course of the initial deliberations prior to bringing any of this to the board, we did a tremendous amount of cutting of different items. I've not shown the board this exhaustive list, but you know, some of the things that we cut were a good chunk of the security locks, the printers for the business office, outdoor Wi-Fi project. I'm not going to list all of these trombones. Oh, you're not even going to see it. Oh man, one of these days we'll get it. One of these. Oh, yeah, I've got this all memorized. You know, we don't need to get into textbooks and all of that, but you can see prior to the budget even seeing the light of day with the board, we worked diligently to cut it down significantly. And as you get down to the bottom there, you can see where we eliminated some duplications. We also had initially projected higher out-of-district costs, so we've cut those down to size. Over time, we've increased the non-lapsing fund reliance by decreasing what we're using this year. And collaboratively and collectively, those landed us at 7.99%. So this again is available to the board in their in this packet or this presentation, which I will reshare, though you did get a copy of it. And I've just kept adding to it, so you just have to go back to it without having to say, oh, was that the Tuesday presentation or the Thursday? So that is the laundry list of things that we cut prior to the first budget meeting.
Mr. Halloran.
I know this packet, but it might be an easy question to ask. What's the dollar amount that we cut? We went from 11.5%, but what's the dollar amount we started with if you can scroll to the top?
Absolutely. So out of the gate, we were at a little higher. We were at 91,325,000.
Mm-hmm.
And down to 7.99 is 88,767,000. So Lou,
I think it was that red number.
oh,
Yeah, it's that red number up top.
there it is. 2.55 million.
Thank you.
So again, that list is available to the board. There was discussion by some board members of what, can we cut this budget down to 7.5%? To do that, we would need to take another $400,000 out of the budget. We're really committed to not recommending any budget reductions that are not through attrition. And that would still, that $400,000, we honestly don't know where that would come from at this time. Potentially we'll get some breakage down the road on insurance costs, potentially breakage on some other things that might come in at a lower cost. The other possibility is the MOU that we're going to sign with the town. If worse came to worse, we could have less capital projects next year and shave that $400,000 from there. I'd hate to, involve the Chromebooks or our technology budget, but there are other things in that budget like paving, playgrounds, things that we can maybe put off. But again, if there's a safety issue, we have to fix things. But that's all possibilities. We're not prepared to give you that laundry list tonight. And then tonight we talked about a few other reductions with those memberships. And the board, yeah, we have not talked about that. I'll turn that back over to the chair as a possibility.
Just first, did you have a question, Mr. Newton?
Yes, I almost called you warden. I'm sorry. The choice money, if we have the memo of understanding that corrects it, that's a $1 million swing back to you, correct, roughly?
What it allows us to do, it's not $1 million. Currently, we're projecting that we would be able to siphon off, for lack of a better word, about $400,000 of that. That won't be needed for the capital account and use that as an offset to the board's budget. This is kind of suggesting that maybe we do more than just that, maybe double that amount. But the downside is it would impact what we can do from capital perspective. Like I said, some paving projects, painting, carpeting, a district-wide vehicle, maybe some of those things could be postponed to get us down to that 7.5.
Yeah, so one of the other things that we were thinking is there's the state mandate for financial literacy teacher, offering financial literacy, making a requirement for graduation for this year's freshmen.
Yes.
Right, so in our budget currently is a position to open up more sections of that class. So obviously it's a state mandate, we have to offer it enough classes for all of those freshmen who graduate with that course. But if we wait a year, so we offer it in the 25-26 budget cycle, obviously it's kicking the can down the road, which we hate to do, but it is possible to still allow for those students to take that class. $100,000.
About $100,000 reduction. What did we project the cost, Lou, for the financial literacy teacher at 1.0?
That was about 112.
112.
Yes.
So we can get that exact number for the board before the next meeting, but approximately 110, 112.
Sweever.
I think one of the things we had talked about, Lou might have the answer to this, was like uniforms for custodians. Uniforms for custodians. I think that was like a $31,000 line item, but is that a contractual?
That's a contract provision.
Yep, okay.
So.
That's why I asked.
So just to remind the board of next steps, we are at February 21st. We were due to have a session on Saturday. My understanding is there may be some folks that may not be available. We also have penciled in or have a meeting a week from today that we could spend on budget matters. But we absolutely have to transmit this to the town by the end of this month. So we are under a tight timeline, and actually going to next Wednesday is probably pushing it out quite a bit. But if the full board is not available for the 24th, then we would have no choice but to rely on a week from today to really finish the budget. And again, just to be clear with the full board, there really aren't any likely huge happenings between now and next Wednesday that would give us any real different direction on the budget. I don't expect a grant to suddenly arrive or some other breakage on health insurance. I think that's months away before we'll know that. So in other words, not a whole lot's going to change fiscally between now and next Wednesday. So the information you currently have really is the full budget picture. And it really is where you need to make decisions as to what we transmit to the town. So I'll turn it back to the chair.
Just so we don't have a scheduled meeting, just looking at the calendar for next week, but we could have we could hold a special meeting. That's what you're saying, right?
I guess I penciled it in my calendar just in case.
Okay, so February 28th, potentially we could have, I'm sorry, what?
So in lieu of Saturday, we would have it February 28th. Make sure I've got the right date.
That is the 28th is
Yeah,
the,
we have budget review on the schedule,
okay. Okay, then that's fine.
but not an agenda.
Gotcha. So it is a special meeting anyways. All right, so I guess I'll open up to the board. What are you comments? We've heard a lot today. Comments, further questions, other suggestions for line items to change, anything from anyone? How are we feeling? Sean?
I think I was at least one of those people who were like, can we get it down to 7.5? Not really expecting that we could, but to almost stress test the budget to see how far we can push it. And I think you proved that getting it down to 7.5 breaks it. That's the point where we are underfunding and underserving our students to the point that we are kind of break even at this point. I just wanted to thank you for doing that with me to make sure that we could say, this is where we go before we start having serious impact to learning and cutting staff. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Oh, Mr.
I just want to quickly thank Maureen and, everyone for the great work, all the presentations and everything. So I think we're just gonna brainstorm and do the best we can. And, I mean, it was such a good presentation because it just shows everything historically, what happened, what's going on, what can be cut, what cannot be cut. So thanks.
Absolutely. And to add to that, and the thanks absolutely goes to my team who put it all together. I'm just the one telling them what to put together. If there are questions that pop up between now and next Wednesday, please funnel them through the board chair so that we can come prepared, because really next Wednesday is D-Day. We have to get the budget done. So any information that you need to make an informed decision as a board, please let me know and through the board chair, and I will work with my team to get the info.
Yeah, so I think I would probably recommend cutting CABE, cutting that, so a $27,000 cut in the memberships. We don't have to do all the motions tonight because I just think it's getting to but I think that probably 112K, whatever, for the financial literacy teacher. I can't believe I'm saying that because I advocated for it, but I advocated for funding, FYI. I would say probably conferences too for 20,000. Bring it back to the appropriated amount of 60. Those are my current asks. I'm sure I will.
I think it was a paving project for 130. The bus, or is it the paving project?
Your mic's not on the bus yard paving. I think Dr. Brummett got an update on that today. Yeah, but it would be.
So the bus yard paving is part of our capital budget. Today, the town manager indicated she will probably cut that out of the budget. However, the restoration dollars in the amount of about $640 in the town's capital has been set aside for us. Last year, we were told we had to use it for bus because we didn't get any bus money last year, but there may be enough residual there to help us with that paving project. But again, that's the capital side of the aisle. That isn't impacting necessarily tonight's discussion. We're hoping it's still a possibility.
Mr. Nguyen?
We are planning on 2 or 3 buses for next year, right? Because we have that big outlook way out. Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure we didn't cut that.
Yeah, and the town manager intended to leave the bus replacement cycle in the budget, but that's still up for deliberations on the town council side.
Ms. Weaver?
So I guess kind of how the next phase going forward is, those of us who can make it Saturday and things like that, we can discuss probably offline after 9 AM.
Well, so I guess, do we hold, I think what Dr. Brown was saying, we don't really have, there's not gonna be that much change between now and Saturday with the budget. So if people can't make it, we can meet on Wednesday with the full board
Yeah.
in lieu of Saturday.
Okay.
But we have to do it on.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I would ask is if you have cuts, to put them kind of propose them to the chair, just so we have a clear sense. And it has to go through the way it goes is we can always cut just $400,000 off the top, or if you have a specific line item, it has to be the account number, line item number, code number, and those kinds of fun things. So we can talk about those. But I think, trying to come to a consensus by Wednesday, I think would have to be the case. Not that it would be great. I was about to say it would be great. It has to be. So yeah, I'll look for more proposed cuts, but I think right now I'm at least proposing probably around 145 for cuts on some other things, and then I'll come back with more.
Can someone email us? And then basically, I mean, I don't know what cuts we're gonna do, or so we have an idea of what's going on.
Sure, I can summarize what Ms. Weaver just suggested and what that results in terms of the total budget and the percentage reduction, which would be approximately about a 0.25%, not even. And I'll certainly send that out. Maybe I'll add it to the slides because you're going to be reviewing those anyway. Yes, absolutely. I'll add that to the slides and send those out tomorrow. That'd be a quick thing.
And the teacher of the hearing impaired might net us 20,000, 10 to 20.
Are you comfortable with a $10,000 reduction there, Lou, for the teacher of the hearing impaired resources?
Hiring a full-time teacher.
Yes.
For the budgetary request that was this time, that is the forecast of the existing students in the program.
For 191, but what if we were to hire the teacher, what would you feel comfortable reducing out of that 191? I thought I saw.
Maybe $10,000, but.
That wasn't a lot of optimism.
Mr. Parisi, how confident are you?
Yeah.
Oh, and I just wanted, Maureen, could you mind just noting, I know Miss Beatrice may watch this whole thing because that's what she would love to do after vacation. But I think noting that I know she was also looking at the custodial uniforms, that line item,
Yes.
just noting that it's contract, can't touch.
Custodial uniforms, can't touch this. All right.
Thank you.
Contractual. Okay.
And then we'll talk about the emails that we all received about the interventionist, just to get a full, because there was a lot of information to digest that we just received tonight. So just get a full outlook on what is possible or what we can see about that. So, yeah.
A lot of people are asking.
Yes.
Yeah, and we recognize definitely, and I know a lot of people have already left, but we recognize that it's definitely a need, and we don't want to, like, Anna Reynolds specifically was a school distinction, and that's probably in part due to the interventionist, and we don't want to take away from students, but as Ms. Kraus let us know tonight, there's definitely some more moving pieces to that, so it's definitely a complication. But we just recognize it and want to take a little bit more time to think about it.
Thank you. And I sure appreciate everyone that came out tonight. The last men standing and ladies standing over there. Your comments did not go unheard. And I know you want what's best for the kids of Anna Reynolds, as do all of we. So we'll continue to put our heads together to see if there's a solution, but I know I trust the deliberations that Steve and Wendy have had about, is there any other way to work the grant appropriately to get to a solution? But we'll keep thinking about it. Do you think we need to make a motion to cancel Saturday's meeting and officially schedule Wednesdays?
Yeah, I think we should probably do
Just to
that.
memorialize that.
Not scheduled.
It looks like not everyone has that scheduled.
Yeah, it's scheduled in the
It
agenda.
is,
We
it's
still
in
have a
there.
full agenda.
Okay.
So
gonna post it tomorrow.
So we'll have to let her do that. So it's not posted.
It's not, okay, so
So we haven't actually scheduled.
we haven't scheduled it, but we
It's not
did,
on the board meeting schedule. It's on an approved.
no, but we went through this list that's laid out here. And I guess it says. No, it doesn't. So let's just make them, let's just to be safe.
It won't
we'll
hurt
see.
anything.
We won't hold out any meeting. We'll meet on the 28th. So.
Move to cancel the February 24th, 2024 Board of Education special meeting and schedule February 28th, 2024 Board of Education special meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I.
Okay. I think we can move on to public participation. If anybody's still here, would like to come up and speak.
Can I ask a question during this time? Or is it on?
Yeah, you may approach the bench.
And ask a question.
Yeah.
We may or may not answer it. We reserve the right to answer at a later date.
My name is Erica Wetzel and, thank you. I live at 92 Old Musket Drive, here in town. And I just had wanted to follow up and ask some questions, and I don't know if you can answer them or not. Conceptualizing about the title schools and whatnot, I guess part of my concern is, are we also, I hear a lot about the Title 19 and the constraints around that. But what I don't hear is, are we looking at numbers and students as how they're doing as they're getting those interventions and the test scores, and what's, are they benefiting from it versus not I would like to hear more of that and not just be on a financial basis of it's very cut and dry that this is what it is, because I also look at, how I think Amy had mentioned, and I know for a fact that Anna Reynolds has increased their math and their scores, and we've won awards and reading and intervention over the course. I've been in charge of the reading-a-thon, so I'm very knowledgeable about the scores and the stats that have gone up. And I also know that some of that is through the interventionists and the work that's been done. So I guess I would love to learn a little bit more about the number process of how the scores relate to it, not just the cut and dry. And I don't know if we can speak to that, if that's possible.
So maybe for our next meeting, or at least that's definitely a good question. And maybe for our next meeting, we can just have Ms. Kraus can present the scores by school and how they've improved. Because we know that at our curriculum meeting, we talked about that, but okay, so yeah, I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
So a quick answer to the question is yes, we monitor all the data across all schools. That's something my office is responsible for. We have lots of systems and structures in place at the district level and at the school level that we're always monitoring. And as an example, it starts way up at the district data team, school data teams, and then we have PLCs that monitor, and the math interventionists are a PLC. I meet regularly with them. They meet weekly. And one of the things we do is monitor who's benefiting, are kids moving. I would throw in two other things. One is that 3 of our schools were schools of distinction in math. So that Patterson and Chafee were also schools of distinction. And I would also add that everything I say about monitoring the data still has nothing to do with the Title I allocation, because that is totally allocated based on one piece of information, regardless of, even if that school were outperforming, that doesn't impact that necessarily. What it would do for us is say, maybe we're not going to put the money into reading and math interventionists. Maybe it's that school has a bigger need with social emotional needs, so we're going to put the money into a counselor at that school. So those are all things we have to weigh when we do the application. In our case, it does behoove us to use the interventionist, and as I said earlier, you want to be pretty stable with that. You can't every year say, this year we're not going to do interventionists, we're going to lose 2 people and hire a social worker instead. So you have to have some stability for programming purposes as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you answering.
No
that question.
problem. I got permission.
Hi, my name is Kristen Colomino. I live at 92 Cherry Hill Drive. So I have 2 things. I'm a little more comfortable now to speak. Sorry. So the first thing is, how are the decisions being made of who's being removed, right? So there's a panic for some of us from an Anna Reynolds standpoint that vital people who have been in the school, who our children have come to love and to cherish, really, could be removed or taken. Like, what will it be for Anna Reynolds? Do we know? Like, who won't be there any longer? Do we know that?
Steve, do you feel comfortable starting to answer that question, or?
Well, so what we do know is that that we are, I'm not sure, I'm sorry, because you all are behind me, so
No,
I'm
it's
not,
okay.
have you been here from like
The
more?
beginning.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
yeah.
So
7 o'clock.
So I think there was a small chart up there earlier of the math interventionist and the split that will take place. So if I'm accurate, I think it was 0.6 at Anna Reynolds.
Okay.
And so that means there's 1.0 math intervention at Anna Reynolds right now. A full-time person. I think she was here earlier, Christina.
Yep, Christina.
And so, she will be there 0.6, and then she would have to be in another school for the other 0.4.
And when it comes to the reading part of it, what are those numbers, right? Because we have those.
Right. So it goes, I think, to 1.8 at Anna Reynolds. And so the staff that are currently there have the opportunity to remain there. They might just be in different positions.
Okay. All right. So, and just so everybody's aware, I know the child, she's not a child, the young lady from the high school was here. And one of the things that she highlighted was the service animals, right? How that's amazing. And one of our reading interventionists is Archie is her dog, right? So I just want to speak to you all about how beneficial Archie has been, right? It's only been, a month and a half or a month. And the value that he adds is amazing. So my fear is that if for some reason Miss Batcho was removed, there goes our Archie. And I just don't think that's a beneficial move for the kids in our school right now. So I just wanted to say that.
And can I respond?
It's not only just losing somebody, but it's
Right.
also losing Archie as well.
Well, our hope is, in every conversation that we've had is that Ms. Batcho will remain at Anna Reynolds, maybe in a different capacity.
Okay.
And Archie will remain at Anna Reynolds. And the opportunity will still be there for everyone.
I'm not sure Mr. Smith is going to be super happy about that, but
Well.
he's not really an Archie fan. But yeah, I mean, it's been really wonderful. So I just,
We agree.
and we don't know who would be, you know what I mean? So it's all, and also with Miss Figueredo, she's been amazing. My daughter was with her for 6 months last year, and she no longer needs math help, right?
Right.
And that's because of Christina. So those kind of things, it's invaluable to put a price on people, really. And
Right.
I know it's hard because you guys have to look at the numbers, but as a parent, I don't really care about the numbers. I just know that these people are put there for a reason, and they are helping our children to become what they are, right? So, sorry, I just had to.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
comments. Would you like to?
No, I just would emphasize too, thank you all for your participation tonight. I think it's one of those things, the more people that are involved in this process, the more voices we have at the table to make this table bigger is helpful for us. Everyone comes to this different perspective. We have parents, former student, we have teachers, like those are the perspectives we need. And each time it gives us a different lens of the budget. So it's greatly appreciated. With that, Nico.
Oh, what?
Oh, you want to say
I
something?
want to say something.
Okay.
What was I gonna say? I guess again, thank you. Thank you for coming and participating and everyone that was here. Hopefully they're either still watching or will listen back when it's uploaded to YouTube in a timely fashion. But YouTube glitch happened last time, but we'll monitor this time. But yeah, so I just want to say that here at the table, we obviously can make decisions based on the budget. We then transmit it to the town, and the town is the ultimate deciding factor. So I would encourage people who have come here and shared your stories and shared your connection to please also come to town council meetings and voice it there, because they have the final say. They will give us, they can't tell us how to spend the money that they give us, but they will tell us how much they give us. And Dr. Brummett will have to, and we will have to work with her to figure out what to do with that number that they give us. So whatever we request of them isn't the final budget. It still has to go through this whole other process. So with the town, they'll start next month, and there will be 2 public hearings, one at the beginning, one at the end, and then a number of meetings just like we've had the last couple weeks. So I just want to encourage everybody to voice your opinions and express what you did here tonight with them as well, because it definitely could help. So
With that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
all right, you have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.